Happy Saturday once again, everybody. Welcome to another edition of the Winged Eagle Podcast. We got a fun episode this week. You want to know why? Because I have a riddle for you. What has two thumbs and has the night off? This guy. All right, it's a Saturday, and I don't have to bail out of here and rush off to work like I have to do every week. So we're going to sit back and relax and discuss all sorts of stuff this afternoon, including the entire week of TV. We'll discuss a little bit about Monday Night Raw. Great things happen on that show. Excellent Wednesday night, as usual, from AEW and NXT. Last night's SmackDown was somewhat interesting, but not really. And then, of course, tomorrow, we've got the Elimination pay-per-view that I have to completely predict. So we're going to go through it all and discuss and all that stuff. And we're going to get into wrestling news as well and, you know, the typical things that we do on Saturdays. Let me do a quick sound check. You guys can see me? All right, good. We're looking good over here. Nice, nice, and nice. All right, hello, everybody. I want to say hi to everybody in the chat as well who have been here waiting, because as I was getting ready to go live here, I was chatting with a couple of you, including How Wheezy. I want to thank you, my friend, for wearing your GoodMicWork merchandise to your big wrestling convention. You sent me a whole bunch of pictures today with all sorts of legends, including Undertaker and all sorts of crazy people in that convention. Every time you go to one of those, I swear you have about 75 pictures to share. So I appreciate that. Devil and Husband as well. You were throwing a $5 super chat right as we went live here. Thanks again to you, man. And I've been great. And your comment there was you didn't realize that the Elimination Chamber was tomorrow. And that's going to be a theme, because I've seen that a lot on social media. And this pay-per-view, I literally give two shits about. But we're going to treat it like every other pay-per-view. I'm going to be up here tomorrow night, immediately following the Chamber, and we're going to discuss it, full review and everything tomorrow evening. So keep a lookout for that. And that should be the final little hurdle we have here to get to WrestleMania, because sometimes, and I've talked about this before in recent years, that it feels like the way the pace of the business now and everything, the way it moves, and WWE has shows booked so far ahead of time, and now you've got these Saudi Arabia shows dropped in the middle of all these important times a year. It feels like pay-per-views are more in the way. They're more of a hindrance than what they should be used for, and that is to further and build your WrestleMania storylines. But pay-per-views are anything but that right now. This fucking show is just in the way, doesn't need to be here, and everything that we're going to see tomorrow could just be accomplished on Raw or SmackDown in some other way. It doesn't have to be inside of a goddamn spaceship just to decide, you know, who's going to be a number one contender or a champion. So a lot of people are very underwhelmed with this pay-per-view. Nobody's really looking forward to it, but we'll be here. I'll be live tweeting. I'll watch the whole thing, and hope you guys can join me tomorrow night. And we'll talk a lot about that build, and at the end here, once we're done talking about everything, we'll predict the entire card. And one thing I didn't do with this pay-per-view, because it's kind of, like I said, an underwhelming show, I didn't take a whole lot of time to try to figure out who I'm going to predict. I'm flying by the seat of my pants here. So once we get to that, I'm going to kind of just make it up as I go along, and we'll see how it goes. Before we get into the wrestling news, we're going to follow the same format as always here. I'm going to discuss a few news tidbits, things going on behind the scenes. Then we'll move into Monday Night Raw. I was up here for a live Raw reaction last Monday instead of a review, and that's going to be the plan going forward until WrestleMania. I'm going to be up here live reacting to every Monday Night Raw, kind of like I used to. And we'll see. Last week was a pretty fun show. Big audience in there, so if it continues, I'll keep doing it. If, you know, it's not worth it, then I'll go back to doing the reviews. But at least for the next 4 weeks, I'm going to be here on Monday night. So get ready for a whole lot of Greg, because you're watching my mug right now. You're going to see me tomorrow night after the Elimination Chamber, and then on Monday night, you got me for 3 more hours during Monday Night Raw. So get used to that. And what else was I going to say about my schedule? I think that was it for this week. But anyway, if you want to like kind of see my reaction on what took place last Monday, you can go back and watch that video, is my point. But as far as Raw goes, I'm only going to touch on a couple of things, but we'll review a little bit more in depth on NXT and AEW and shit like that. So let's kick off the wrestling news. Actually, let's kick off our Patreon shoutouts first. Then we'll jump into the wrestling news. Barry MK400, I want to shout you out first. I saw your comment on my Patreon post about a couple of upcoming videos I have for the channel. Sorry to disappoint you, but the comment you made is just going to be, that video is going to be just on that one match. And he's referring to a This Day in History episode that I have planned for March 17th. Right now, for those of you who don't know, I'm in the middle of a 10-day long WrestleMania countdown on the channel. I did a top 10 WrestleManias podcast last year, about 2.5 hours long. WWE pulled down the video twice So I kind of threw in the towel and decided to chop the whole thing up and just upload them like mic drop segment style on my channel, just counting down my 10 favorite WrestleManias of all time. So that's going on right now. And then, of course, like I said, you got me 3 days in a row here for the live streams. Coming up on March 17th, I've got a big This Day in History plan for one of the most famous matches in WrestleMania history. And then coming up on March 22nd, that was originally March 15th. It was supposed to be a week from tomorrow, but I changed it just to better space out the videos on my channel. 1 week from tomorrow, I've got another big, long, fun podcast. It's not going to be a live stream. It's just going to be a podcast video on 3 big WrestleManias, and I'm going to review all 3 of them in a row and talk about that time period. And it's basically the new generation era from 1994 to 1996. So I thought that would be a fun discussion to do. And then coming up on April 1st, we got a fun April 1st video on the channel. And then right after that, it's WrestleMania weekend, and you've got me like every fucking day. So the channel is busy. But anyway, back to the Patreon shoutouts. Barry, as always, thank you, my friend. Blake Moran, as always, thank you. Claudio Clavedescher. Brandon Collier, I want to thank you very much because you sent in a $100 donation just the other day, and you have requested a video for me to do a review. It's kind of like a Survivor Series related video. So as soon as WrestleMania comes and goes here, or just probably a week after WrestleMania, I will have your review posted on the YouTube channel. Thank you again. Domanian Elwell Sr., Daniel Rodriguez, Devlin Husband, shouted you out just a minute ago, Jordan Karg, John Riffle, John Rediford, Josiah Blevins, Keith Salyers, Michael Cuomo, Mr. Steve, Nathan Walker, Reese Jones, Ryan Y, Steve, and the Double Z TV. Zach, you are the man. I appreciate all your support, as always, guys. Let me peek back over here to the chat and knock out a super chat or two if anything came in before I hop in the news. And I think we just got one from Mr. E 1976. Thanks, man. Appreciate the $2. Showing some support. Thanks for all you do. Well, thank you for all you do as well. I know you're in here a lot, hanging out with us. And I think that's all we got right now. And about 100 people in the chat so far. Do me a favor, smash that thumbs up so I don't look like a J-Brone. All right, let's hop into the news here. Very first thing I want to start with, I want to wish... or send out well wishes to Big Papa Pump, Scott Steiner. It was reported last night that apparently he collapsed at an Impact live event. Apparently he was there filming some pre-tapes, recording some interviews or something, and collapsed. Now, initially it was reported not to be too good. Sean Ross Sapp had mentioned something like, it's not looking good for Scott Steiner. And then Scott D'Amore and Tommy Dreamer both tweeted out a couple of hours later that Steiner was doing okay. Still really no word at that point what happened to him. They thought maybe he fainted. Nobody really knew what exactly happened other than he was rushed to the hospital and he's fine, in good spirits, and everybody thanks the fans for their support. More reports came out today that apparently it was some sort of a cardiac episode. He is set to undergo a procedure today, which he's probably already done because it's 3 p.m. here on the West Coast. And apparently that's all in the works today. So whatever was wrong with him does look like it was a heart issue. And that's, it's kind of tough to gauge what's going on because some people said it was very serious, and then you had Scott D'Amore saying he was okay, which made you think, oh, maybe it was dehydration, or he fainted or something else. Then today to hear it was something related to his heart isn't good because Scott Steiner, he's put some things in his body. Let's just say that. And, health issues for people like him is not going to be a huge surprise when it happens. But he's, we all wish him the best. Scott Steiner is, despite everything, he is quite the legend. He's had quite the career, and he's a pretty memorable character. And I think I'm pretty sure he's going to be just fine because I was crunching the numbers earlier on, playing around on the calculator, and I calculated that he has about 141 2/3% chance of a full recovery here. So get well, Big Papa Pump. Matt Hardy is also back in the news. He's been in the news pretty much every day since his departure from WWE and his contract officially expiring on March 1st. He recently said in an interview with Sports Illustrated that he does plan on making his final decision, where he's going to wind up within the next month. So like within the next 30 days, could be a week, could be 2 weeks, but within a month, he's going to decide where he's going to go. And we already know that he's really tight with the Bucks of Youth. They showed up at his compound in Cameron. There was a video on YouTube. He's already doing videos with the elite guys. And when you read his interviews and you really read between the lines there, I would love nothing more for this to be some great swerve and he just shows back up on Raw or SmackDown or maybe NXT like that has been discussed. But excuse me, whenever I read interviews with him, when he talks about his career and what he wants for his career, he really is adamant about being able to have a canvas to paint on, to be creative and really let, his juices flow and come up with different ideas. And the more and more he says that, the more and more just makes me realize that he is not going to have that canvas in WWE. Maybe if he did the NXT thing, he'd have a little bit more wiggle room. But otherwise, there's just too much shit you have to go through. There are too many writers and too much management and too many bad fucking people with bad ideas back there that will just stunt the growth of something like that. And we've already seen that once. They tried the Woken thing, And I don't know. I mean, it doesn't sound like he had a whole lot of, creative control in that. But Matt really wants this to be his creation, his vision. And I think he's more likely to get that sort of creative freedom in a company like AEW over WWE easily, So I'm guessing, especially with Elite guys showing up, on his YouTube channel, AEW is going to be the place for him. Whether or not he's the Exalted One, I don't know. I'm thinking it's looking more and more likely he will be. And we'll talk about Jake Roberts here in a little bit when we talk about AEW. But with Jake coming on the scene now and saying he has a protege, and when you think about a couple of the big names that are out there that can debut, the two big ones being Matt Hardy and Brody Lee, I think Brody Lee is a far better fit for Jake Roberts than the Exalted One. You know what I mean? Because he's coming in as a different name. Fans only knew him as Luke Harper, who's been doing nothing for the past several years in WWE. Why would he be the one to be the Exalted One? He doesn't have that leader type of character. He's always been just a guy in the faction. So it's better for him to have the legend backing him up and somebody like Matt Hardy be the Exalted One. But it could turn out to be nothing like that. You got to think that the Exalted One is going to be a heel. As Matt Hardy's going to come in with a pretty big pop, you would assume, in AEW. So can he be in that Exalted One role where he's very dark and very heelish? He could get there eventually, but I think initially he might have to come in, to get that initial crowd reaction, that crowd pop, and maybe cut a promo or something. So it all depends on how AEW chooses to handle that and what Matt Hardy chooses to do. But when he says he's talking to everybody, including Impact, that would be interesting to see him appear there again. And the NWA, he could do something fun where he, maybe he does an appearance in Impact and an appearance in NWA. And makes the fans think that he's just going to kind of do that for a while, and then bam, they hit you in the face with him on a Wednesday on Dynamite, and he signs a full-time deal with them. I don't know. Either way, whatever Matt Hardy does, I'm guessing he's going to go to AEW, play around there for a couple of years, and wind up finding himself back in WWE and going to the Hall of Fame with Jeff would be my guess. But the more and more I think about it, and the more and more you kind of read between the lines here, he's going to AEW. Can't wait to see him there. Also, we've got the next Hall of Fame inductee that was confirmed. Now, we already knew this. JBL was on the list of the likely candidates this year, or the likely inductees this year, and that was confirmed this week, I think, on WWE Backstage. And I've mentioned JBL before. I don't like him. I think he's a fucking douchebag. He blocked me on Twitter. I've never liked any of the stories I've heard about him in terms of the hazing and the bullying and just the overall asshole-ish, dickish attitude that seems to surround this guy's fucking melon. Never just thought he was a good dude at all, but he still has a lot of friends. He's well liked, and somehow he's managed to be well respected in the company despite, just one horror story after another about this guy. But I said a couple of weeks ago when his name was rumored, no matter what I feel about the guy, no matter if I dislike him or like him, whether it was one of my favorites or not, if I'm judging his body of work and what WWE considers to be criteria for going into the Hall of Fame, he's 100% hands down a Hall of Famer. How can you not be when you are a multi-time world champion, tag champion, intercontinental champion? He went through the ranks. He did a lot of things. He went a path that very few guys of like that era went through, as far as like working your way up short, from mid cards, then into a tag team. Then he was kind of a singles, then he was world champion. Then he kind of backtracked to the IC title, but he really was all over the place and was very versatile and changed up his character a lot. So based on that alone, Hall of Fame material, absolutely. Do I think he's a dick? Yes. Do I think he's a Hall of Famer? Also, yes. And also, the next Hall of Fame inductee will be officially announced this week on the After the Bell, on Corey Graves' After the Bell podcast on March 12th. So that could be British Bulldog or Jushin Thunder Liger. Those are the two names that were rumored that we haven't got confirmation on yet. And I really, really hope that it's Davey. And shout out again to How Weezy, who sent me a bunch of pictures from the convention he went to in New Jersey. One of the pictures he got was with Davey's daughter, Georgia, and she was holding up his Heart Foundation jacket, the leather jacket with the sleeves cut off. And it was his because it's all on the back where the skull and the Hart Foundation logo was. It's all worn out, and that's the way those Hart Foundation jackets were back in 1997. Very cool picture. Other news that I've got here, kind of an interesting news, like from a legal standpoint, but again, WWE and all their high-powered lawyers, I'm sure, will find a way out of this. There has been a class action, lawsuit filed against WWE. Now, this is primarily, apparently, because of their business dealings with Saudi Arabia, and they've allegedly had multiple violations of the Securities Exchange Act of 1934. Now, the firm that is suing them is this Robbins, Geller, Rudman, and Dowd LLP. They specialize in securities, consumer insurance, healthcare, human rights, employment discrimination, and antitrust. So they've been digging around, didn't like what they see, and they filed some sort of a fucking lawsuit. I'm no lawyer. I don't understand business or legal shit at all, and it's completely over my head, so I don't know what's going on there. There's a lot at play here because of, the departures of the big VPs a couple of weeks back, George Barrios and Michelle Wilson, plus the stock has plummeted drastically since that happened, and all of that kind of plays in to this class action lawsuit. So we'll keep our eye on that one to see exactly what's going on there. And the other big piece of news here, which is kind of interesting, and I cannot wait till these begin. The Vice channel, the ones that released the wrestling documentaries last year, was it last year? The Dark Side of the Ring, they had like the Macho Man one. They had a whole bunch of great ones on there. The Screw Job, which was fantastic. Now, they have officially announced a second season for this, and it's going to debut on March 24th. And the first episode that they're doing is a doozy. It's going to be on the Chris Benoit double murder suicide. Whew. That's a topic. That's going to be really interesting to see their take on that. And it's going to be gnarly. So, and that's not even the craziest. They've also announced the other episodes that are planned for the second season, and there's some big ones in here too. Number one, Dino Bravo, which has always had a really interesting story. The way he was killed and his involvement in the Canadian mafia or whatever. I think he was killed over cigarettes and shit like that, or some, I don't know what he was doing with the cigarettes, selling them illegal cigarettes, something like that. Anyway, he was tied in with the mob somehow, and he had basically a hit put out on him and was killed, which that was crazy. There's also one planned for the Brawl for All, which I find really interesting. I don't know who they're going to get to talk about that, but that should be fun. The Road Warriors, the career of New Jack, Jimmy Snuka's girlfriend, the one that he allegedly and was convicted of killing way back in the 80s, and last but not least, the death of Owen Hart. So that's a big season there. The Benoit, the Dino Bravo, and the Owen Hart one in specifically, I really want to see. Slightly interested in the Snuka's girlfriend one, although there's not a whole lot of mystery to me. Snuka 100% fucking killed her. We all know that. And he's as guilty as OJ. I'll put it that way. So that one I'm sure will be sad and might be a little bit infuriating to watch. But I think the more interesting ones are really going to be that Benoit, Owen, and Dino Bravo documentary. So that should be interesting as well, starting on March 24th. I can't wait to get a look at those. Let me see. I think that's it for the wrestling news. The coronavirus, I thought I'd mention that because there are still some concerns. WWE did hold a talent meeting with some medical professionals there, just kind of reminding the talent of all the necessary precautions to take and things like that. And I'll tell you what, I didn't even realize that this was because of the coronavirus. I've been going to the store lately, and I've realized that the entire toilet paper and paper towel aisle is empty. But I really only go to one store, so I'm like, oh, the toilet paper truck must not have shown up or something. So I go to a different store last night, and sure enough, they're wiped clean. And I was mentioning it to the checkout person, I'm like, what's with no toilet paper? And so they're like, it's the virus. And I'm like, really? Toilet paper? And she's like, yeah, toilet paper, paper towels, hand sanitizer has gone up like $3 or something. And I'm like, I'm so oblivious to this, I'm not even noticing. Luckily, I've got enough toilet paper in the house right now, but didn't even realize that people are in fucking panic mode over this. And, just be smart, just keep washing your hands and don't be stupid. And really, this virus, it seems to really affect the elderly and stuff like that. So, if you're young, you're talking about pretty much a flu bug here. And I'm hoping that we get a handle on this and we get a lid on it, because I don't like to have to worry about shit like this if you're traveling. And plus, when you have wrestling shows and shit like that coming up, like Wrestlemania, a lot of fans might refrain right now from maybe going to sporting events. NBA has been having talks about having games in front of empty arenas. Dana White is concerned about it with the UFC and some of their plans going forward. So it is a big deal, and we should all be careful But I'm hoping that this is a whole lot of panic for nothing. It's kind of my hope, and I'm almost just kind of ignoring it till it goes away. And I know that's stupid, but I just I want this whole situation to go away so we can get back to life as usual. You know what I mean? Anyway, that wipes out my news and all that stuff. Let me just cruise back over here, make sure there's nothing to catch up on. We all good in the hood? All right, let's hop into some wrestling chatter now. We're going to talk about the entire week of TV, Raw, NXT, AEW, and SmackDown. If you could do me a big favor, too, and smash that thumbs up button and keep those things climbing for me, I would appreciate it. Let's talk about Raw. Now, like I said, I was up here this past Monday doing a live Raw reaction. I'll be up here again in 2 days doing the same thing. And I don't want to go through the entire, match-by-match account of Raw because that will take forever. We don't have time for that. I only want to talk about 4 major points. Number 1, the final segment with Beth Phoenix. Now, I had an issue with this on Monday because I knew the segment was going to be good. You knew Beth Phoenix was going to get hurt. You knew that going in because you got to get Edge back there somehow. Now, my big problem on Monday was unless Edge is really home convalescing and selling the injury and he can't travel, I don't understand from as great as this segment was. This is a minor nitpick because I'm about to suck the dick of this segment. But before I do, let me just say one little small criticism about it. It's if you're Edge, you're looking at this from a kayfabe standpoint. If you're Edge and you're married and you're sending your beloved wife. Now, granted, your wife can take care of herself. She doesn't need help. She's a boss. She could kick my ass easily twice. So Beth is totally capable of taking care of herself. However, from a husband standpoint, knowing what Randy Orton is capable of, knowing that he has done some pretty dastardly things in the past, including beating the shit out of women, why would you stay at home in a different state and let your wife fly somewhere else to go into a combat sports ring face-to-face with one of the most dangerous men in pro wrestling? Why would you not be there? Why would you not be waiting behind the curtain with a fucking baseball bat just in case you need to run out there and bash this fucker's brains in? That's the only thing that I didn't understand here. So anyway, Beth is on TV. She came out to give an update on her husband. She's interrupted by Randy Orton. We knew that was going to happen. He still is He's kind of telling us why, but not why. He's swearing up and down that the entire reason he did what he did to Edge was to save him, because if Edge came back, he would get hurt, and he didn't want to see that happen, so he had to save Edge from himself because he's a junkie for the crowd, and he's a junkie for the spotlight, which really isn't true. The guy's been gone for 9 years, and he's been relatively out of the spotlight. I mean, aside from a couple of appearances here and there, and the Edge and Christian show, he's really kind of kept to himself. He's enjoyed his time off. He hikes and does outdoorsy, and he's got a family now. So it doesn't seem like he's really doing what Randy Orton is accusing him of. But still, it's good because you feel Randy Orton. We all say that, a heel's got to believe what he's saying, right? And you truly believe that Orton does. And he looks like he's scaring the shit out of Beth at the same time, getting in her face. Finally, the whole thing leads to her I think she slaps him, and then, they did everything they could to make sure she got a couple of licks in before he hit her with the RKO. So I think she slapped him. Either she slapped him or he blocked it. I can't remember. Then she tries to kick him in the gut. She does, and then he hits her with an RKO at the very end. So lays out Beth Phoenix. He slithers away. All the doctors and the EMTs and trainers get in there to help out Beth, and she's a mess with her neck, and he's gone. So that gets him a ton of heat. It was a great segment overall, and it's going to be wonderful when this match is made official this week on Raw. But still, I question what Edge was thinking, doing that. Or, okay, fine. Let's just say you can't. Let's say you can't travel, which is bullshit because he can travel this week. If you travel this week, you could travel last week. So if for any reason that he couldn't be there for some reason, then you know what? You call up one of your homies and be like, dude, I need you to keep an eye on her. I need you to be close by, be in the ring, be outside the ring, be right behind the curtain, and be ready the minute this guy makes the wrong move. The fact that Edge took no precautions there, what kind of husband is this guy? Anyway, that's nitpicking. Like I said, this segment and this storyline still is the most interesting one across all of WWE right now. And there's some good ones. There's some decent ones, like I'll talk about in a minute, but this one still is the front runner for me as far as just how real it feels. And I knew it was going to be this way because when Edge was rumored to come back, I said way back last year that his first opponent should be with Randy Orton. That would be a perfect guy because there's all sorts of history and there's all sorts of shit you could do there, and there's a lot of meat on that bone, and you can go far with it, and it would be a perfect way to kind of ease Edge back in to the ring, working with somebody he's very familiar with, somebody who's going to take care of him, and somebody who's going to give him good segments both in and out of the ring. Orton's the perfect guy, and so far, this segment's aces, man. Loving it. Or the storyline, I should say. Another angle and segment that I liked on Monday Night Raw was the opening segment with Brock Lesnar and Drew McIntyre. Holy shit. Love that. And I said this is exactly what they need to do with Drew. Now, Drew's going to get his, leading between now and WrestleMania, whether it's this Monday on Raw or the next week. Next time these two guys are in the same ring together on Raw, Drew's going to get F5'd and beaten down hard. We know that. So that's okay. But what I like about this segment the most is that I was just a little bit concerned with Drew McIntyre being on the mic a lot. I'm not sure if and I'm going to talk about this with Moxley too. Not sure. Don't overly pander to the audience, because I think in the long run that can get you in trouble. And Drew, even though I like his work on the mic, I don't want him just being too babyfacey all the time. And the last thing I wanted to see this past Monday is when Brock and Heyman were in the ring doing their thing. I didn't want to see Drew come out and cut a promo for a 5-minute promo on why he's going to beat Brock Lesnar. I don't think we needed that. I need badass McIntyre, because he looks like a badass. He is a badass. He needs to act like a badass. So what I want to see is him take it to Brock, be aggressive. And holy shit, he did. Got right in that ring, nailed Brock with a Claymore. Brock sold it like crazy. Drew even picked up the belt and held the belt up in the air. Brock sold the Claymore like $1 million. You think that's the end of the segment, and the camera is kind of following Brock stumbling his balls off outside of the ring, up the ramp, and that's when McIntyre reappears and hits him with another Claymore on the ramp, and then he hits him with another one after that. Wasn't there a total of 3? Was it 2 in the ring and 1 on the ramp, or 1 in the ring and 2 on the ramp? I think it was 1 in the ring and 2 on the ramp. Whatever it was, he put Brock down hard, and I loved that. That's what you need to do. That's great shit. I thoroughly enjoyed that, because if you're going to have badass versus badass, the last thing these two guys need to do is a lot of talking. You know what I mean? They need to be, well, I don't really like the whole pull apart thing either. We're going to shit. We're going to get that 1 week. So here's what we're going to get. three weeks of shit coming up here. We're going to get Brock getting the best of Drew, where he probably puts him down with 3 F5s. Wouldn't be surprised at all if it's 3 F5s to match the 3 Claymores. Then 1 week, you're going to have to do a pull apart. Then you're going to have to do the contract signing. And then maybe have McIntyre one-up Brock one more time before WrestleMania. And as far as the WrestleMania match, I still think now that Roman is going in there to face Goldberg, I'm still thinking it's up in the air who wins the title now. I mean, are 2 long-haired, bearded guys going to win world titles at the show? I guess so, because Goldberg better fucking not beat Roman Reigns. And I really want McIntyre to beat Brock, but now with the Roman direction, I'm nervous. I'm nervous, man. But I think you got to put Drew over here, man. You need another big star on Raw. And Brock, I'm sure, will take time off after WrestleMania. All the signs are pointing to Drew. Put the belt on Drew, WWE. Don't fuck it up. Also, new tag team champions on Raw as well. Street Profits defeated Seth Rollins and Murphy. Now, I'm okay with this. I predicted them to win at Super Showdown, and I was happy that Murphy had gold around his waist. But I kind of thought the pairing with Seth and winning the tag team titles to begin with was kind of strange, especially when you already have a tag team in your faction. If it was up to me, I might have made Murphy like the Roderick Strong. Maybe put Murphy in the U.S. title situation. And I know those 4 guys are dealing with that: Andrade and Garza and Ray and Humberto and all those guys. But if you put Murphy in the middle of that and maybe had him win the U.S. title or something and bring that over to the Monday Night Messiah, he can be like the first guy to hold gold, and then the AOP could follow with the tag belts, and then, I don't know what Seth does because he's kind of out of the world title picture at this point, but I might have gone in that direction instead, and I didn't think that either one of those guys really needed to be wearing the tag team titles right now. So the fact that the tag titles are back on a tag team, I think are great. Technically, I guess they were transitional champions to pass the belts from the Viking Raiders to the Street Profits. I suppose you could look at it like that. They are getting a rematch tomorrow against the Street Profits for the tag titles, but I don't think they're going to win them. I think you just keep the belts off them at this point, because Seth is going to go on to WrestleMania to face Owens, I would assume. But congrats to the Street Profits. I'm glad they won, and hopefully the run will be longer than the Viking Raiders was. And the last thing I want to talk about Raw, I can't believe of a 3-hour show, this is what I'm choosing to talk about. We got to talk about fake fucking spiders. I knew it. I knew they were going to do this. And I'm not even mad, because I probably said 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago, maybe even 5 weeks ago, that I've completely lost interest and do not care anymore whatever WWE decides to stick in that stupid cage of Erick Rowan's, because I guarantee you, I will bet my middle nut that when they came up with the idea for that cage, they had no clue what was going to be inside of it. And I said that the minute he showed up with it, or the minute they started cluing you into that something was in there and it was a mystery. The minute the mystery was involved, I'm like, well, they don't know, because they can't decide. They have no idea. They do this shit all the time. They did the same thing with like Stone Cold getting ran over by the car. They didn't know who it was going to be, and they just waited to decide. And then when they revealed it sucked. And whenever they do that, it always sucks. It's never ended well. So here we go again. They put out a stupid thing, and then they don't know what's going to be. It's like the anonymous general manager. You guys hit me with more in the chat. Name some other scenarios where there was a mystery and then you could tell that WWE didn't even know what it was. Same thing in WCW. Who was in the limo? They didn't know what the fuck it was going to be. Who blew up Vince McMahon? That probably would have been a different one had Benoit not did what he did. So there's tons of examples like this. This is another one. Luckily, this is a minor storyline, a mid-card, lower-card storyline. After all of this weeks of build and a couple of weeks there, they actually made you interested as to what might be in the cage. The whole thing ended with a backstage segment with no fucking way, Jose. And then the conga line or whatever wants to see what's in the cage. And then Rowan says, after all these weeks of killing people just for peeking at it, he's just like, okay, I'll show you. And he pulls out a mechanical goddamn spider that's wiggling and jiggling, and everybody screams and runs away. And he's like, oh, he's petting it, and he puts it back. Trying not to go crazy here and bash my head through the computer screen, but yeah, like, does it matter? No, this is something minor. You know, this isn't something that's going to throw me and push me over the edge like Goldberg's beating The Fiend that I thought was just ridiculous. So this is something that in the long run doesn't matter anyway. I didn't care what was in the cage. It didn't matter to me what was in the cage. So the fact that it's a fake spider shouldn't bother me either, because I didn't care to begin with. But it's just a perfect illustration of how WWE doesn't know what the fuck they're ever doing. And just why start something if you have no clue what it's going to be in the end? Just to have it be a big letdown like that. It's like, you know, at least, I mean, you kind of had a finite amount of things you could really do. What was going to be in that cage? First of all, it's a cage with a sack over it. Whatever's in there you would think is alive or going to pretend to be alive. So it had to be some sort of an animal. It couldn't be like a severed head or anything, or a severed foot or something like that. Yeah, I exhumed the body of my dead grandfather and sawed off his foot and put it in the cage. Like, they're not going to do anything like that. So what could you really put in the cage other than something stupid? So I guess we should have expected that. But anyway, I've given way too much Winged Eagle time to the fake spider. F you, Erick Rowan. And I think by him pulling out that fake spider might have essentially buried him. Unlike Aleister Black, for everybody who thought Aleister Black was buried on Raw, I'll tell you what, I kind of like what they did there. They made Aleister Black versus AJ Styles, but instead AJ kind of flips the tables on him, and he has to go through like a gauntlet match, take on both of the members of the OC, Gallows and Anderson, back to back before facing AJ Styles, and then he gets beat at the very end. And everybody's like, holy shit, you buried him. I'm like, not really. You know, WWE was smart enough to know that a loss, even to a stud Hall of Famer, former world champion like AJ Styles, probably isn't the best thing for Aleister Black right now, because they're trying to give him a big push. I want to see this guy be world champion. I love Aleister Black, but at least if they had to beat him like this, they took every precaution necessary to keep him as protected as possible. And at the end of the day, if you get beat by somebody like AJ Styles, are you ashamed of yourself? Fuck no. And guess what? We get a rematch tomorrow at the Elimination Chamber, and you know Aleister Black is going to win that thing. And I guarantee you we're going to hear a gong tomorrow night. So I was totally fine with the way they handled everything on Raw, and I think it leads to a bigger match tomorrow, which will lead to an even bigger match at WrestleMania with AJ Styles, and we'll put a nice victory in the pocket of Aleister Black. So none of that really bothered me at all on Monday Night Raw. Let's move on to NXT next, and before we do that, let me knock out a couple of super chats up here, because I know there's a couple flying in. Let me go all the way back. Mr. E, I got you. Who's next? Sam Pibbon, good to see you, man. Thank you for the $5, dude. I appreciate it. Did you know about Stone Cold Steve Austin will be back in 2 weeks on Raw? Yes, I did know that, and thank you. That's a perfect time to remind me, because I just wrapped up talking about Monday Night Raw. I did see that advertisement. Good. Always good to see Austin back. It's WrestleMania time. You need to see this type of thing every now and then. I really don't mind the legends. I think there is a difference between WWE relying on legends too much and having legends on TV. And I got Delexman or Alex, I got in a conversation with him the other day on Twitter, because he was upset about the NWO coming to SmackDown. He's like, oh my God, stop relying on the past. And I'm like, that one doesn't apply here. Like, I see what you're saying. I know the instinct is to think that way when you see what they're doing with like Goldberg and Undertaker at WrestleMania. And we've seen other WrestleManias where they've really heavily relied on legends. And I don't think that's necessary all the time to rely on them. However, having them on TV during WrestleMania season in a segment is not relying on them. That's bringing them in for WrestleMania season, maybe to spark a rating, to bring back a familiar face. If they're beefing up a Monday Night Raw in mid-June with 95 legends, then yeah, fuck, what are you doing, WWE? We don't need that. But for WrestleMania time, WrestleMania is now in its 36th rendition. It's a celebration of not only the current state of wrestling, but the past and the future. And you always want to have legends involved. I would never want a WrestleMania season without legends, ever. I want them there. I want them sprinkled in. It's all a matter of how you use them. So having the NWO on SmackDown last night, who fucking cares? It's a goddamn 10-minute segment. What's the difference? Bringing out some guys that are going to be featured this year at WrestleMania. They're in the Hall of Fame. Bring them out on TV. What the hell do I give a shit? They're not in the main event. They're not beating anybody. They were on the moment of bliss. It's not like they're out there cutting a promo, just hogging up the spotlight. They had two current stars in the ring with them, Nikki and Alexa. They that gave them a rub right there. Nikki took a fucking selfie with him. They had Nakamura and Sami Zayn and everybody come out there. They were mixed in. They were just in there to spice up the show a little bit, give it some names. Did we need to see them? No. Was it an example of WWE relying on the past? No. Give me a break. They're just there. Stone Cold Steve Austin, same thing. He'll be appearing on Monday Night Raw. Great. Let him come out there, stun somebody. Doesn't mean WWE's clinging to the past. It means that they're bringing back familiar faces for WrestleMania like they do every year. And I've been watching wrestling longer than most of you, and I can tell you this is the norm for WrestleMania. It's been happening since around 1994 when they brought Piper in to be the special guest referee at WrestleMania 10. And after that, there was somebody involved every year at WrestleMania, somebody doing something. Some legend coming back to pique interest. It's what they do. It's what they've always done. But anyway, always good to see Austin. Can't wait to see him. I have still yet to see the Big Show Broken Skull sessions, and I think they've announced Bret Hart coming up in the future. And that one, holy shit, I cannot wait to watch that. So that'll be great. Anyway, thanks, Sam, for the $5. Michael Kumo, thanks again, man, for the $5. Dino Bravo apparently had a lavish lifestyle long after his prime days were over to keep up on. Which is why he worked in organized crime. Yeah, I read a lot about the Dino Bravo situation. I always thought it was really interesting. And I remember, I've got this weird like flashbulb, but it's not a flashbulb because I was older. I was a teenager by this point. But WrestleMania 7, 91, he was on the card against Kerry Von Erich. And both of these guys would be dead shortly after this. Von Erich would die 1 year later. In 92, and I can't remember what year Bravo passed away. But I remember like Bravo wasn't on TV. He was heavily featured like the previous year in the summer during the Hogan Earthquake feud. He even feuded with the Ultimate Warrior like early 1990, and Dino Bravo was like heavily featured, and then he kind of like wasn't on TV for a couple of months or something, and he's randomly advertised for this match at WrestleMania against Kerry Von Erich. And I remember, I will never forget it, sitting in my living room, because we watched, as a family, my mom even cried when Savage and Liz hugged each other. We watched, as a family, WrestleMania 7, and I had one of those old TVs that, they're in like the big wooden frame, and then there's a little screen in it, and the knobs are on the side. You know what I'm talking about, the 80s TVs, right? So the pay-per-view is on that TV, and I distinctly remember when they were doing the introductions, and they introduced Dino Bravo, his face looked funny. And I was like creeped out. I'm like, that doesn't look like Dino Bravo. His face, it all looked like jagged or something. It almost looked like he got beat up, or he had like black eyes or swollen eyes. His eyes weren't wide. Like, he just did not look like himself. And I've gone back and looked at it since. It's such a weird thing to share with you guys. It's just, I've just always thought about it. And I don't know what was going on there. It just looked like he was not who he used to be, and I don't ever remember seeing Dino Bravo on TV again after that, after WrestleMania 7. He might have worked some matches, but I don't remember him. So I always remember that about Dino Bravo. Right around that time, he was probably getting involved, and he was probably pretty seriously involved in the organized crime by that much, and I don't know what was going on with his face. Really creepy and really weird. But anyway, that Vice doc on him is going to be really interesting when that comes out. I can't wait. McLean Roche, thank you, brother, for the $5. Appreciate it. Greg, did you hear about Paige sent to the hospital for emergency surgery on Thursday? No, I did not. Paige, all right? I missed that. I completely missed that. I don't know how I missed it, so hopefully it wasn't that serious, whatever it was, but no. If anybody wants to fill us in the comment section, I'd appreciate it. Hope Paige is all right. Spaz Phoenix, good to see you in here as always, man. Thank you for the $10, dude. I appreciate it. Cheap plug, OK Fabe. Oh, look at that. OK Fabe returns to the Spaz Phoenix channel to talk all things Elimination Chamber. Live at 7 p.m. Toronto, Canada time. About 20 minutes from now. Sorry, man, they're here. You guys cannot go over. No, I'm kidding. You can go over there if you want. 20 minutes from now, go check out Spaz Phoenix's channel. He's got OK Fabe on his channel, and check out OK Fabe as well. They're good people, good dudes. I'm sure they'll have a lot of awesome things to say. And thanks, dude, for chiming in. As always, have fun on your stream. No, Edwin, I've not seen the Sonic movie. You seem really into it because that's your avatar as well. But I've got the original Sonic the Hedgehog games right on my Sega Genesis right behind me. Maybe I'll play them tonight in honor of you, Edwin. All right, what's next? Let's talk about NXT. NXT and AEW this Wednesday was fun. Yeah, I guess it's so weird how we have to kind of, with the way the week goes, I have to start with Raw, and then we got to talk about Wednesday night, then we have to talk about last night, then we got to talk about Elimination Chamber. Yeah. So let's start with NXT this week. Now, NXT and AEW both had phenomenal shows this week. I enjoyed them both. I do know which show I enjoyed better. I'll reveal that here at the end. But I thought they were both good. The ratings are in, and as usual, AEW continues to roll, beating NXT rather handedly. 906,000 viewers to 718,000 for NXT. But NXT still put on a very solid show. This show was bookended by 2 steel cage matches. Now, I was surprised on a Wednesday night, 2-hour Wednesday night show, that they're going to have 2 steel cage matches on the same show. Wasn't even sure if that was going to be a good idea or not. But I liked the fact that they were spaced out in the opening one and the main event. 1 women's, 1 men's. And what was interesting about this is they had 2 cage matches with 2 really unique finishes. And Dakota and Tegan Nox were up first. This is seemingly, I guess, going to be the blow-off of their long-running issue that started way back at War Games. Now that you have a cage match, Triple H is an old-school thinker. I would like to think that he is actually treating this as the blow-off, and I think that he is. Unless they, I think their rivalry is one that will kind of never die, but maybe just this current issue between them, the series of matches is now over, unless you do one more, but I'm hoping it's over. Anyway, the 2 in the cage match put on a really good showing. I thought both girls showed up. They came to play, and Tegan, she was very aggressive in the match, but she still made a ton of mistakes. It felt like she could have won this match 3 different times, especially when she climbed up to the cage a couple of times and dove off and all that shit. Seems like the match could have been hers if she really wanted it to. Dakota had a really cool, I think, top of the cage bump, flat black bump on the mat, which really looked like it hurt a lot. Overall, I thought, when a women's cage match generally happens, they can kind of be hit or miss. Most of the ones that we've seen in recent memory have been good. This one was no different. These girls really put it all out there, even though there's a few holes in the match here or there. I think the overall match was really good, and it was all really kind of building and bubbling to that crazy finish. And the finish was good. They had Tegan, after she should have already won 4 times. She's up on the top of the cage again near the door. Door is open because it's one of those deals where you can escape the cage to win. And as she's climbing down, Raquel Gonzalez, who was at ringside the entire time, she takes the door, the steel cage door, and basically pins Tegan up against the cage on her way down. And she's basically just pinned up there. She can't move. And Raquel's just holding the door, and that allows Dakota to slide through the opening and win the match. So I thought it was kind of an interesting, different type of finish that was good. I still think Tegan should have been slightly smarter at times during the match and could probably had Dakota beat, but you knew they were all building to Dakota kind of winning like this and getting the final laugh in this blow-off match, but at the same time kind of keeping Tegan strong too, because it took a whole lot of help from Gonzalez for Dakota to pull off this victory. And like I said, they could do one more, but at least for right now, I kind of hope that they're done. We'll see where they go. Big match coming up on the horizon at TakeOver between Finn Balor and Walter. Finn Balor had a promo hyping up that match. Really good stuff there. I'm excited just to see that match in the ring. That's going to be incredible. Walter versus Balor. Hell yeah. We also had Rhea Ripley hyping up her match with Charlotte at WrestleMania. She went to Tampa. She went to where WrestleMania will be held, where the Buccaneers play. I can't remember the name of the stadium. Does a big promo in the middle of the field talking about this opportunity and what it means for her. And they're hyping it big. I mean, I'm really nervous for the match because I really feel like we've got a repeat scenario here of Asuka and Charlotte, because you guys know that I started falling in love with Rhea late last year, like during the summer. And I'm like, she's got to be the one. She's going to be the one to dethrone Shayna. Everybody's freaking out, wants Shayna to lose in every single title defense she has. And I'm like, man, let's wait. Let's wait for that badass to smack her in the mouth. We found that badass in Rhea Ripley. I've been on Team Rhea ever since. And I want Rhea to defeat Charlotte at WrestleMania. However, where I draw the line is where everybody else is going to be on this. If we get any other outcome other than Rhea Ripley winning, and Charlotte wins this match, everybody's going to flip their shit. It's going to be Ripley's buried. Ripley might as well go back to NXT. Well, she's already there. Ripley should quit and go to AEW. They've ruined her. All of that stuff. It is not going to be a situation like Goldberg and The Fiend. It's not the same thing. Now, as much as I want Rhea Ripley to win, as much as I think it would be great for her to have that feather in her cap, and Charlotte has been in the business long enough now where she's transitioning into more of a veteran status, and her putting over some people here or there isn't going to hurt her at all. But she's also right into what I call the John Cena portion of her career, where we all thought the same thing for Cena. Once he was champ for a few years and so dominant, and he had already had like at least 1 year-long title run, at that point, I'm like, this dude can put people over, and he's never going to lose an ounce of his stardom. He's going to be legend for life based on what he's already done. So a loss here or there wouldn't matter. But he continued to win, and he continued to win more and more and more. And that's where I feel like WWE is with Charlotte right now, even though I think Charlotte could totally afford to put Ripley over here and give Ripley that big fucking victory, at WrestleMania that would do wonders for her career. I also feel the same about Charlotte and WWE making her, their John Cena, where she's just going to beat fucking everybody. And Ripley might be no exception. And you got to wonder, WWE doesn't seem to really be making any effort to defeat AEW in the ratings. They've had a couple of shows where they've put some talent from the main roster on there, and the ratings have done better. But right now, it feels like NXT is just there to more hinder the growth of AEW rather than beat them. WWE doesn't even seem to care that they're losing in the ratings to them. But you have this one NXT show coming up after WrestleMania that's been advertised somewhere else other than Full Sail. And if they ever decide to maybe change the look of NXT, because it still has a very small time feel to it, it's only in front of an arena of about 400 people. AEW is produced in a much bigger, grander, more Monday Night Raw or SmackDown style of a way. If WWE ever decides they want to try to actually compete and beat them, they might move NXT to a different venue and start maybe traveling weekly, or maybe put some bigger stars from the main roster on the show. They've already done that with Finn Balor. They've had some people show up there here and there, but what if you put somebody in there as champion? What if you send Charlotte back there for a while? Is Charlotte enough to beat AEW in the ratings? No, I don't think so. But she still will be one big name there that could maybe help if they're trying to elevate NXT to actually beat AEW in the ratings, and they might want to take make a couple of changes to do that. It's just some speculation. I don't know. So I could see Charlotte winning for that reason as well. I think Charlotte winning, regardless, would be a temporary situation. It's not going to be like, her beating Asuka, now she's the champion, she's in our face all the time. If she goes to NXT, that Charlotte in NXT cannot be permanent. There's no way. So if she does win the title, guess what? That means she gets to drop the title. And provided she drops it clean, then I think that could be a big deal for somebody on the roster like a Rhea Ripley winning the title back, or maybe even like a Bianca Belair getting her revenge and winning the title. Preferably Rhea, if they were going to do it that way. But then you got to ask yourself, okay, Greg, if Rhea's just going to beat Charlotte for the title, why didn't Rhea just beat her at WrestleMania? Good question. Maybe it's because they want Charlotte in NXT for a couple of months. Maybe they do. You could reverse it as well. If you want Charlotte in NXT for a little while, I argue this, because I want to see Rhea Ripley win. What I would do, if WWE insists on that, instead of doing it their way and the John Cena way, and let's have Charlotte win, like always, and then she'll go to NXT and drop the belt. What if you have Charlotte lose and still go to NXT? What if Rhea Ripley beats her? What if Rhea Ripley catches her with a quick roll-up or a quick small package or a cradle, or beats her in some sort of a surprising, shocking, holy shit out of nowhere way, pissing off Charlotte? Charlotte shows up in NXT the Wednesday after WrestleMania, demanding a rematch, and then she wins the belt in NXT instead of on the big stage of WrestleMania. Give that moment to Rhea, and then have Charlotte beat Rhea Ripley for the title, have her run with it for a couple of months, and then Ripley wins it back, winning, the feud and the blow-off. Will WWE do it that way? Probably not, but that might be the way I'd do it. Who knows? What do you guys think about the Charlotte and Ripley stuff? Yeah, Charlotte put Carmella over. That still baffles me, right? But you got to remember, Charlotte didn't choose to put Carmella over. WWE chose for Charlotte to put Carmella over. While certain pieces of talent, and when you're up there on the top of the card, of course you have some creative influence. You'd have to be an idiot to think that you don't. But you still have to understand that the fans, when they start saying like, oh, Goldberg, Roman's not going to put anybody over. It's not really Roman. Roman, trust me, if Roman was backstage being a dick, refusing to put people over, that shit would be all over social media. He would get a bad reputation. You'd hear these stories. They would get out. They would get leaked. You never hear any of that. But yet that's how the fans talk. Oh, Roman Reigns not going to put anybody over. It's not about Roman. It's about who WWE wants to push. And at that time, they wanted to push Carmella. So they had her beat Charlotte. I don't know why. But, Charlotte, I really don't think is going to be the type of person like Stone Cold Steve Austin in 2002, who wouldn't put over Brock of all people. It's not like she's going to be pitching a fit again. I'm not putting her over. Fuck that. She's not that type of person. Neither is Roman Reigns. So I don't know if the fans, they got to understand that it's not It's WWE pulling the strings here, not them. Anywho, beside the point. I'm going to be interested to see, and I'm going to be very curious to see where this winds up, what happens at WrestleMania, what Charlotte winds up doing, and if she wins the title or not. You feel like she kind of has to do it, because why is she challenging for it? It's kind of a random thing. Unless WWE really has this plan to make Rhea Ripley a big star, and they need to give her a major victory somewhere, and they said, hey, Charlotte, you mind putting her over just randomly? And then she said, okay. But, you got to wonder, is this really going to be like a one-match thing? Are these girls going to be one and done? I guess Asuka and Charlotte technically were, and I had pitched that Asuka and Charlotte could continue. The Asuka beating her meant nothing. Just continue the feud. That's all you have to do. Just do a rematch or a return, and they never really did. So I suppose the same could be true here for Ripley and Charlotte. I'm curious. I think that we have a very likely possibility of fans being angry, which sucks because the match itself is awesome. As soon as Charlotte won that Royal Rumble, I think there was a couple of people right off the bat that were like, look at who the champs are right now on Raw and SmackDown. Does it really make any sense for her to challenge either one of those ladies right now? What if it's Rhea? Think of that match, how great that would be. And that's what sucks about wrestling today, is you can have a match that on paper is gorgeous. Charlotte and Rhea Ripley, sign me the fuck up. I'm the type of wrestling fan that doesn't care who wins this. I want to see this clash. I'm not going to read so goddamn far into it and fly off the rails if my favorite doesn't win. I don't give a fuck. I want to enjoy the novelty of having this match, kind of a dream match, sort of. It's a match that, I'm sure we're going to get in the future, and we're going to get many times in the future. But for it to happen right now under these circumstances is interesting. Never had a Royal Rumble winner challenge a champion in NXT before. This is a first. This whole thing is a first. So I'd rather look at the bright side of that rather than flipping out, worrying about who's going to win or lose. Anyway, best of luck to both ladies. We'll see what happens in Tampa. We had Chelsea Green defeating Shotzi Blackheart. Now, I am not at all into this Robert Stone gimmick at all. Chelsea Green, I like her, sort of, but, she doesn't do a whole lot for me in the ring. I hate her finish. It's called the I'm Prettier, not the Unprettier, but it's a version of Christian's Unprettier, but it looks like shit, so she needs a new finisher, but it's called the I'm Prettier or whatever. Not into the Robert Stone thing at all. Just don't care. Just don't care about it. It's an angle that I don't care about. I don't like it any more than I like the Nightmare Collective. We'll see if it gets better, but I'm not sold on it yet. We had a Keith Lee and Cameron Grimes promo that's setting up a big match between them next week, so that should be interesting. The Undisputed Era Kyle O'Reilly and Bobby Fish defeated Oney Lorcan and Danny Burch in a tag team match. After the match, they got on the mic, called out the Brosers, said, we want another shot at the tag team titles. They come out to seemingly accept the challenge, but they're also jumped from behind by the grizzled young veterans. They get on the mic and, basically put the locker room on notice and challenge Undisputed Era more or less to a match. So, the two of them those two teams are on a collision course, and probably the winner of that match will get the shot against the Broserweights at TakeOver, I'm guessing. So that'll be coming up in the next couple of weeks. Looks like they're pushing this Austin Theory kid extremely hard. He had a big win against Isaiah Swerve Scott. WWE seems high on him. He's super young. There's just something about him. He's just a very easy guy to hate because he's a douchebag and he's really good at being a heel. And he's young and he's good looking and he's cocky and all that stuff. We've seen those guys that are a dime a dozen. WWE sees something in him. He does have ability. He does have charisma. He's got ability on the mic. I'm not a huge fan of him yet, but, I could possibly be the more we go on here. And WWE, they've got some douchey heels and stuff, but even guys like Undisputed Era, there's still a cool side to them. A guy like Austin Theory, there's nothing cool about him. He's just a dick. And I think they might need that. They might need that MJF-ish type of guy. I know nobody can be as good as MJF, but, to get that cocky, just swagger that those douchey, gum-chewing heels have, I think Austin Theory has all of those abilities, and we'll see where it goes. I wish him the best. We also had a Johnny Gargano sit-down interview, kind of like how they do on Raw with Michael Cole. He was sitting down with Mauro Ranallo, talking about, and he's supposed to really explain why he did what he did and turned on Tommaso Ciampa, but doesn't really explain why. He just rambles on a bunch. Takes offense to some of Mauro Ranallo's words and some of the things he was saying to him and gets pissed at him and is yelling at him and makes Mauro Ranallo very uncomfortable. Until Mauro Ranallo takes off his mic and leaves, leaves the entire interview there. So not a whole lot was revealed there other than Gargano was being a huge prick, and it's setting up his big match with Tommaso down the line. That's going to be fun. The main event, man, wow, another one. Big steel cage match between Velveteen Dream and Roderick Strong. Velveteen's been fucking with Roddy the whole time with the wife on the tights and the whole deal. This match was so awesome because it had such a neat little twist. And like I said earlier with the women's match, they had a unique finish. And they had a unique finish in the men's match that I don't think anybody really saw coming at all. This is just not what I saw coming. So anyway, they do the cage match, very good match, exactly what you expect out of these guys inside of a steel cage. They get down to the finish there, and they essentially have Velveteen Dream out of nowhere, where I think both guys are kind of, attempting to escape the cage. The Undisputed Era gets in the ring, and they're getting involved. Adam Cole is now inside the steel cage, and that's when Velveteen Dream just pushes Roderick Strong out of the cage, essentially losing the match on purpose, grabs the cage door, pulls it closed, grabs the padlock and the chain, and locks himself inside the cage with NXT champion Adam Cole. Brilliant. Holy shit. What a swerve. This whole thing, apparently, kind of the story they're telling on TV, this whole thing was done as a big trap. This was done by Velveteen Dream. He targeted Roddy to get to Adam Cole. He targeted Roderick Strong to get Cole in the ring by himself and say, I'm your next challenger for the NXT title. And that was great. So I think that was really well pulled off, both cage matches. And now we have our next NXT title program on the horizon, essentially, with Adam Cole and Velveteen Dream. And I've been waiting, for Adam Cole. I'm like, okay, who's going to be the guy to take the belt off of him? And maybe it's going to be Dream now. I didn't even see Dream as being really a contender. I kind of thought Dream was going to go to the main roster before getting a chance to be champion. And now it feels like they might be going with him. What do y'all think? You think Velveteen's going to win the title if they do this match? I'm assuming it'll be a takeover, right? I think he might. So good stuff there. Very interesting the way Velveteen kind of methodically bided his time in order to, unveil his master plan to everybody. And his plan was to target NXT champion Adam Cole. And we know those matches are going to be good. Holy shit, they're going to be good. Yeah, I'm ready for that. Oh, no, I didn't hear that, Austin Kinkle. I'll answer that in 1 second, though. Let me just scroll back, make sure we're all good. A pretty good audience in here, a couple of hundred people. Do me a favor, smash that thumbs up. And if you're here for the first time, shoot me a subscription. Go follow me on Twitter as well. We're approaching 5,000 followers over there. That'll be exciting. Once we hit that 5,000 followers, that means we will officially be only 995,000 followers away from 1 million. It's a milestone, man. Thank you to everybody for all your followings on social media. I'm kidding. Anyway, Austin Kinkle, thanks for the $2, dude. I appreciate it. Did I hear the rumor about Nia Jax coming back at the Elimination Chamber? No, I didn't. She's not booked for it, but that doesn't mean she can't get in it. We've seen guys wiggle their way into chambers before. I don't know if they want to do a backstage segment where one of the ladies is beat down. That's probably, if she's coming back in the chamber, that's probably what they'll do. She'll beat up somebody and then maybe get added to the chamber, but I think this chamber is Shayna's to win, so I don't know why you would do that. The only thing I can think of is if Shayna wins the chamber, maybe, I don't think, I was about to say maybe Nia Jax returns and like challenges Shayna, and the two of them have a match on Raw leading up to the Becky match, but Shayna would beat Nia Jax. Nia Jax would essentially just be coming back to lose. I don't know. I think that rumor could be true, but I don't see why. I don't want to see Nia Jax come back. I don't want to see Nia Jax win. Maybe an argument could be made that the only other logical opponent on Raw other than Shayna would be a Nia Jax if she's healthy, because when you look at the other members on the roster, the other ladies on the roster, I don't want to see any of them challenge Becky at WrestleMania. The only other person I'd rather see would be Ronda Rousey. Now, she was at WWE headquarters this past week, I think, along with Cain Velasquez, wasn't she? So maybe she's set to come back night after WrestleMania or something. I kind of had that in mind for Ronda Rousey. But we also heard reports of Vince McMahon not being too terribly thrilled with Shayna Baszler and Kairi Sane on Monday night. So Vince, being the psychotic prick that he is, who knows? Maybe he just up and decides, you know what? This whole plan for Shayna Baszler, it's out the window now. We need a new plan. That's not what I want. Jesus, this fucking old man. So if he, in fact, has made that decision, they need to find a new challenger for Becky. Nia Jax coming back as a big bad heel, winning that chamber and challenging Becky might be a good idea. Want to know why? Because of the same reason the fans accused WWE of putting the title on Goldberg, and I said they were all crazy, and I turned out to be wrong, because they want to make sure Roman Reigns gets cheered. What if they do the same thing with Becky? If Becky goes into the match against Shayna Baszler, she's probably going to get booed, even though she's the babyface and Shayna Baszler is an evil asshole heel. The fans just want to see Becky Lynch lose that title so badly, especially to somebody like Shayna Baszler. But what about Nia? Lest we forget, 2018, the punch from hell that sent every wrestling fan in the world into a paranoid, psychotic rage. Send her back to NXT. She's unsafe. She's a piece of shit who deserves to die. Somebody put a bullet in her head. Somebody kill her. These are the things that were going on simply because she potatoed somebody. A mistake that every single wrestler in their careers have made. And she knocked Becky Lynch out of Survivor Series. And it was the worst thing in the world, which led, the whole reason Becky Lynch won the title in the main event of WrestleMania was because she got punched in the face. So if there's one woman in the entire roster of WWE that the fans would actually prefer to see Becky win against, it might be Nia Jax, because you would assume she still has all that heat. And I really don't think, I've always said that heat was unfounded. The fans were just so up the ass of Becky Lynch at that point because she was the most over thing. And Nia Jax took that away from the fans and ripped it away from them. And they acted like a bunch of little babies about it and cried and bitched and whined like little pieces of shit. So if you put Nia Jax in this match, and assuming she still has those hard feelings from the fans, and assuming she gets on the mic and talks shit about it, hey, Becky, remember when I bashed your brains in and all these idiot fans gave me shit about it? I don't give a shit about any of you. Go fuck off, and flips them all off. Maybe Becky Lynch becomes cheered again. Maybe Becky Lynch, is beloved now that she's got this evil Nia Jax to face. So in theory, Austin's idea is not really that bad. Bring Nia Jax back. Have her face Becky Lynch instead of Shayna. WWE, she has to be cheered, right? That could be what they do. And then you have Becky Lynch beat Nia Jax. That's what you do. You have Becky Lynch beat Nia Jax at WrestleMania to get the Roman Reigns treatment, right? So she can be cheered, and WWE doesn't have to worry about the fans booing her and sabotaging her, because the fans would look like the idiots if they did that. If they have the Nia Jax and Becky Lynch match at WrestleMania and the fans cheer for Nia Jax, they are the biggest group of hypocritical fucking sheep on planet Earth if they do that. So you would think that Becky Lynch would get cheered, and then if she does, puts down Nia Jax at WrestleMania, comes out on Raw the next night with the belt, and that's when Rousey shows up and challenges her, and then the rematch is on. I always thought that rematch would happen at WrestleMania. Maybe it just happens at Backlash or something like that. I don't know. But maybe that's what you do. Could be an interesting theory there. I think you might be onto something there, Austin. We'll see. Anyway, let's go back. Did I miss any other super chats here before we get into AEW? Oh, yeah, Vontae, you remember. I remember. Man, I've never seen the hate spew so hard on Nia Jax. Fans wanting her dead. Seriously? Seriously? Do you hear yourselves? Man. But yeah, I just think that, based on all that, that might be the one wrestler that's there that could get Becky Lynch cheered. They might do the same thing with her that they're doing with Roman. It's very, very possible. We'll see. I still think it's Shayna. I would still hate to think that Vince McMahon, just because he's got a bad day or he gets pissed about something, that he completely kiboshes somebody's entire push, and we still get the Shayna thing, and that's what they do. But Nia could be an option. That's for sure. All right, let's get into AEW Dynamite, because this was a great show. Love the show. Man, Dynamite and NXT were off the hook this week. They really were. So anyway, this show opens up with the big Moxley Championship celebration. They're right off the heels of Revolution this past Sunday, which was an excellent pay-per-view. Bravo, men and women in AEW. You guys are doing a great job so far. Pay-per-views have all been good. Revolution was a ton of fun. And Dynamites on Wednesdays have been great. And this company is rolling, man. I feel like they're doing a lot right. They're not perfect. They're not doing everything right, but they're doing more right than wrong. And to criticize them is to be foolish, basically, is what I'm saying. But Moxley comes out. He's your new AEW champion. Celebrates a little bit with the crowd. And I think, much like Drew McIntyre, I mentioned him earlier on, I just want Moxley to be careful with the pandering to the audience, babyface stuff. I know you got to do that a little bit. Totally fine. But, when he came out there and he started, I almost kind of rolled my eyes like, oh, brother. When he came out with a belt and he did the whole, this is not my belt. It's not AEW's belt. This is the people's belt. Everybody does that. Every cheesy fucking babyface does it. I think Moxley's better than that. So as long as he doesn't make that a thing and he doesn't keep sucking our dicks too much, I'm fine with it. Just be cool, dude. Don't go over the top with it. So anyway, he's out there with his belt, and I think it's great that he won the title. I am so happy. That is living proof that get the fuck away from WWE if you are just creatively unsatisfied. If you know you're capable of more, go. And I think that's why, you're seeing teams like the Revival and other people, and all it's going to take is one big female star to leave too, which I think will happen sometime down the line, to keep jumping over there and seeing the success of others. That's a smart move on AEW's part to put the title on him. Number one, he's got the name. People know who he is from his WWE run, and he's a big star there with a lot of great experience, but it also shows talent in the WWE and other companies that might not be happy. Look what you can do over here, especially if you know your value and you know your worth. Come to a place that also understands and appreciates your value and your worth. That's what I would do if I was a wrestler. So Moxley being the champion and taking the belt off of Jericho, I was thrilled with. No issue with it at all. So as Moxley's out there celebrating, the Inner Circle come out to the ramp. This is great. This is why Chris Jericho is the greatest motherfucker alive. So he's out there, typical I just lost the title heel shit, making up all sorts of crap. First of all, he says he doesn't need the belt to be Le Champion, and he's right. Chris, you will always be my Le Champion. Always. And he also says that he should still be champion because Moxley cheated. Moxley was dishonest because Jericho spent months and weeks preparing for a one-eyed man. And when Moxley revealed that he could see, he's a cheater and all that shit, and he won the belt under false pretenses. That is just exquisite heel logic by Chris Jericho, and that's why I love heels like this. They come out and say shit like this after they lose because they believe it. He 100% believed that he was done wrong, that he took a spike, jabbed somebody's eye out. They decided to play possum, make them think that they were blind, and then somehow they're wronged for it. That's just that's the best type of twisted logic that heels can do. I love you, Chris Jericho. You're awesome. So anyway, says he doesn't need the belt to be the champion, talks about Moxley and shits on him and all that, and makes an announcement. He says that later on tonight in the main event, it's going to be a tag team match with Sammy Guevara and Jericho taking on Jon Moxley and Darby Allin, which I was really looking forward to. And Jericho basically vowed to put Moxley down tonight. He says the Inner Circle is going to get him, and he even makes a little ultimatum or stipulation. He says, if Moxley walks out of here on his own 2 feet tonight, I will take a 60-day leave of absence from AEW. And I'm like, oh, there you go. because we've all heard about him, going off and doing a Fozzy tour and shit like that. And that's such a specific stipulation. It's so random. Why not 40 days? Why not 90 days? Why say 60 days? Why not just say 2 months? Why not say 6 weeks or 8 weeks, or make up any sort of a number? That's such a specific stipulation to make. You wouldn't say it if it wasn't going to happen. You know what I mean? So at the end of the show, I'm expecting Moxley to reign supreme, and then Jericho's going to have to leave or whatever, right? So we'll fast forward to the main event now, because that's what I want to get to. It's Moxley and Darby taking on Jericho and Sammy Guevara. Jericho and Sammy are in the ring. Darby, I believe, comes out next, and then Moxley comes out. Here comes the champ. He comes through the crowd, and in the audience, you have 3 masked men, and they jump Jon Moxley. It's the Inner Circle. I don't know why they're wearing masks, I guess to hide themselves. It's Proud and Powerful, I think, and Jake Hager. So they attack Moxley. They drag him back to the concession area, beat the shit out of him in the arena, leaving poor Darby Allin all by himself in the match, basically 2-on-1 against Jericho and Sammy. Darby held his own. My God, this kid. I love Darby Allin. Did you see the video of him he put up on his social media? I saw it on Twitter. It's probably Instagram and everywhere else. He did like a 75-foot coffin drop into a foam pit. Holy crap. Looked like the Wile E. Coyote falling to his death or something. Really crazy shit. So this kid is so over with the audience, and he really just had a strong effort, fighting his balls off, 2-on-1, nearly even had the match won a couple of times. It's like a 10-on-1 situation, because the entire Inner Circle is out there as well after they're done beating up Jon Moxley. They're all at ringside. At one point, Darby does a big coffin drop from the top rope to the floor on all of the members of the Inner Circle. That was great shit. The ending sees him going through a diving tope or something on the outside of the ring, and Jericho hits him in mid-dive with the Judas effect. Picks him up, tosses him in the ring, pins him 1, 2, 3, and Jericho and Sammy are victorious. They continue to beat down poor Darby, and that's when Moxley shows back up, because we knew we hadn't seen the last of him. He's not going to go out like that. He comes back out, starts fighting off the Inner Circle, but the numbers game catch up to Moxley. They start beating him down. They drag him all the way up the stage and do a Shield-style powerbomb right off the stage through a table onto the floor, and the show goes off the air with the entire Inner Circle flipping Jon Moxley the bird. That was a great way to end the show. So Jericho made good on his promise, or did he? So here's the thing that I'm wondering what they're going to do. I still think Jericho's going to take this leave of absence somehow. I think they're either going to redo the stipulation on Wednesday again or something like that. Or my idea is, he said, he was very specific in what he said. If Moxley walks out of here on his own 2 feet, right? That's what he said. Then I will take a 60-day leave of absence. Well, the show went off the air. He didn't say if he walks out on his own 2 feet before the show goes off the air. He said if he walks out on his own 2 feet. So wouldn't it be funny if this week on Dynamite, they have Moxley come out to the ring to cut a promo, Jericho and the Inner Circle come out to the stage, and they're bragging and all of that, and Moxley's like, Jericho, what are you doing here, man? You're not supposed to be here. And Jericho goes, what are you talking about, you stupid idiot? And he goes, I don't know, maybe we should just roll the video and take a look at what you said. And then they put up on the screen video from last week, Jericho saying, Moxley, if you walk out of here on your own 2 feet, I will take a 60-day leave of absence from AEW. Actually, let's reverse this. Let's put Moxley on the ramp. Let's put Inner Circle in the ring. Let's have Inner Circle come out first and then Moxley, right? Okay, so Moxley goes, let's go to the video, and they show all that. And Jericho goes, yeah, so what? I said that. What are you, stupid? Do you not remember last week when we powerbombed you off the stage and flipped you off? Are you that dumb that you don't remember that happening? And Moxley's like, yeah, I remember it happening. And you guys all walked away. Guess what? The cameras kept rolling. And then he goes, let's go to the video. And then it shows Moxley climbing himself out of the wreckage of the table, standing up, refusing medical attention, and hobbling. Remember when Bret Hart beat Stone Cold at WrestleMania 13, the blood and the whole deal, and Bret and Shamrock did the thing, and then they leave, and Austin's in the ring by himself, and they show Austin he stuns a referee, and he kind of just hobbles back to the backstage area. And Vince is like, man, look at that man. That's a man's man right there. He's walking to the back and he's taking his pride with him. And if you have Moxley kind of climb out of the table like that and just kind of hobble outside of the arena and have the camera following him out, like walking out on his own 2 feet, getting in his rental car and driving away. And then Jericho's like, oh shit. And then Moxley's like, well, your word is a binding contract, so I've gone ahead and taken the liberty of hiring some security to escort you out, and then all the guys in black shirts come down to the ring. They grab Chris Jericho, and remember when Jericho got fired in 2005 after he lost to John Cena, and they're like dragging him out. He's like screaming, and the fans are singing the na-na-na-ha song or whatever the fuck. That's what you do on Wednesday, right? How great would that be? Jericho's kicking and screaming. Now, I don't know, maybe they've put some stuff out on social media. Maybe I'm not the only one predicting something like this, or maybe nothing like this will happen at all. But that's what I'd like to see happen. I just think that will be hilarious TV. Jericho can leave all mad. Inner Circle will be stunned. Holy shit, we have no leader for 60 days, leaving them in shambles. That would be great. You know, maybe even somebody like MJF, because he had a promo on Wednesday night as well, kind of mentioning Moxley a little bit, and he had a big win over Cody Rhodes at Revolution, so you would think that he actually might be in line for a title shot. So maybe he sits in as like an interim leader of the Inner Circle until Jericho gets back and he gets the title shot. You know, I'll take the reins here. I'll lead these guys. Plus, you got Wardlow with him, making their team even stronger. And maybe MJF kind of just fills that brief void for Jericho until he comes back. What do you guys think of that? You think anything like that will happen? Yes, and I did see Devlin Husband. Thanks for the $2. I saw the TMZ article about MJF and flipping off the kid at the autograph signing. And it seems like some people were mad about that. But didn't I just mention this last week? Didn't I? It was last week or the week before. I talked about MJF and his ability to be such an amazing heel and knowing when not to cross the line. He puts his toe up to the line every time, but never crosses it. It's like some comedians who just constantly have to walk through a minefield and be so careful not to tell the wrong joke that'll get them canceled. And MJF kind of doing that same thing, to be in character 24/7 like that, and to be able to never really truly cross the line. Most people find his heel antics entertaining, you know, but at some point he's going to offend the wrong person. Some people didn't like what he did. Who the fuck cares? He flipped off a little kid, whatever. I thought it was great. I don't think it's going to harm MJF at all. I think it's actually going to make him stronger. And I think, you know, if he did something, you know, involving the Inner Circle and Moxley, it might be, you know, might be interesting, especially in the absence of Chris Jericho. You know, when Jericho comes back, then I don't know what happens if he reclaims, you know, the Inner Circle. And one thing I did mention about Jericho too is that when he does come back, I think at some point in the future, probably this year, before 2020 is over, I think Jericho's going to be a babyface, because Jericho has already had his heel run now with the title. He got the company off and going. He got him up and running, you know, got him off the ground. He was their champion, carrying the torch for the first few months there. He's already kind of babyface-ish as it is, because the fans love his heel work. And, you know, he's very into having the audience sing his theme song. So maybe if he comes back from a 60-day leave of absence and now MJF is firmly in control as the leader of the Inner Circle, maybe they all turn on him. I mentioned that scenario too, like 3 weeks ago. I said maybe, you know, when Jericho loses the title, the Inner Circle kind of loses faith in him, and they turn on him and beat him down, causing him to turn babyface, which then gives all the fans every reason in the world to sing his theme song when he comes to the ring. And then Jericho and MJF can battle maybe for the right to the Inner Circle, or Jericho's just a full-fledged babyface by that point. But I think a babyface run is in Jericho's future for this year. I mean, the guy's 50 years old. You know, he's not going to be wrestling full-time or anything like that, but I think when he does resurface, he will reinvent himself yet again and potentially be babyface. I hope he is. Let's see, what else we got to talk about on AEW, because this was a really good show. I know I'm kind of jumping around here. We still had no real revelation yet as to who the member or the leader of the Dark Order is, or the Exalted One. They lost a 8-man tag to SCU and Colt Cabana, who Colt Cabana showed up at Revolution, is recently signed with AEW. Now, like I said earlier, when it comes to the Exalted One, I still think when it comes to names out there, people who can debut in the company, Matt Hardy is really the best option for you. There has been talk of Brody Lee, but I think Brody Lee is better suited for Jake the Snake Roberts, and that's my next segment. We had Cody Rhodes coming out to cut a promo on MJF. He's mad about the way that he lost, and he's immediately interrupted by Jake the Snake, who comes down to the ring, tells Cody to stop being a little bitch, stop whining about losing to MJF, and says that he's got a protege. I've got a protege, and I've got a meowing cat that he's bringing to AEW, and he's targeting Cody specifically. And he says, you know, I'm not the type of guy that wants the entire pie. I just want your piece of the pie. So whoever this guy is with Jake, he's coming after Cody Rhodes. And in one of the best lines in recent memory in a promo, Jake Roberts says to Cody, he goes, "You never turn your back on somebody that you respect or that you're afraid of," and then immediately turns his back on Cody and tosses the mic right over his back. That was great shit. So let the speculation begin. Who is Jake backing up? I think it's got to be Brody Lee. I think he is the perfect guy. He's the exact type of guy who, yes, he's going to be known. Fans are going to know who he is, but he's not some sort of a huge, crazy overstar. You know what I mean? He's somebody that only has moderate name recognition. Plus, it's not going to be the same name the fans are used to him in the WWE. He looks like Jake. He even has had, I don't know, maybe kind of a similar gimmick. I could see him coming to the ring with a snake or something. He doesn't have to be a carbon copy of Jake, but as far as like his look, they look a little bit of alike, right? They're close to the same size. So I think it's actually a really good pairing there to put Brody Lee with Jake Roberts. So that's my pick hands down because that's who I want and that's who I think would make the most sense. And I think that would be a really good addition for AEW. Now, you do have to question how many of these legends they need to bring in as managers. Now, I'm not going to complain about seeing these guys. I love Arn Anderson. I love Tully Blanchard. I love Jake the Snake Roberts. But WWE gets accused of bringing too many legends on their shows, and as long as like they're not like Goldberg and winning world titles, I really don't see a problem with it in either company. So I really don't have a problem with Jake Roberts too, provided that his protege is somebody that matches him. That's why I think Brody Lee matches him. My big problem with Arn Anderson is I feel like he's got no business with Cody Rhodes. Makes no sense for them to be together. Arn Anderson coming out there like a fucking coach. Cody's a veteran. Cody's father is the American fucking dream, Dusty Rhodes. He was kicking out of small packages as a sperm in the womb, you know, like Cody knows wrestling. He doesn't need a coach with a Denny's menu tell him to lift his knees up in a match with Darby Allin. He knows how to do that. He's a fucking pro. He's got his wrestler. He's got his opponent's finisher scouted. Believe you me, Cody's not dumb. So I think that pairing is odd. Sean Spears and Tully Blanchard I liked because I thought Sean Spears needed something, but now we've seen that he hasn't amounted to anything as a babyface. Now he's looking for a tag team partner. So, you know, you got two guys potentially coming in, and we saw a promo for them too, right? Spears and Tully talking about Spears still searching for that tag team partner and trying to figure out who to pick. Everybody's sending in submissions, including Simon Miller from What Culture. So you never know who he's going to wind up picking, but you basically have two mysteries now. Jake's bringing in somebody, the Dark Order's bringing in somebody, and Tully and Spears are bringing in somebody. So it's just a matter of where all these guys fall, and there's a lot of that going on. You know what else there's a lot of going on in AEW? Trios. 3-man factions. We got another one kicked off. We had Pac defeating Chuck Taylor in a one-on-one match. I like this match, and one thing that was funny about the match is Jim Ross is still the same way he was 20 years ago. He still gets really irritated with guys' physical appearance. Remember back in the day, he used to always give Mark Henry a lot of shit for how he looked and how his body type was and his physique. He was doing the same thing to Chuck Taylor here in this match, talking about him needing to get in the gym. And hey, I love Chuck Taylor, but Jim Ross has got a little bit of truth to that. I mean, Chuck Taylor is somebody that I've always said is in horrible shape. And if I am signed to a contract for a major wrestling company on national TV, not everybody, I'm not saying look like 2005 Batista or anything, but your partner gives a shit. Trent looks great. I think Chuck Taylor should just try. Get on the treadmill, the bike, jog, do something. He looks like shit. Jim Ross didn't like it, and I found that to be more amusing than anything else. But Pac tapped him out with the brutalizer. The Lucha Brothers showed up after the match. They beat down everybody, and Pac gets on the mic and says that the three of them are forming like a faction. They're going to be called the Death Triangle. So when you look at how many 3-man units there are in AEW, there's been a lot of talk about maybe them introducing a 6-man championship. Now, I might be in the minority on this, but I vote no. I have never been a fan. They did this in the NWA and WCW. I've never been a fan of 6-man titles, of trios titles. I just think it's too much. I don't think you need them. I know AEW has enough teams that you could probably sustain those championships, but to me, they don't feel that special. They don't feel that sacred because you're talking about a 6-man tag title, and it's just too much. I'd much rather have them introduce a singles title like a television championship or something like that. TV title would be great if they brought that into AEW. 6-man titles, it feels like they might do that, but I vote no. I don't want to see that. I don't need to see it. But it certainly does look like we got a lot of factions involving 3 members in AEW, and that's cool. And I like the pairing. I think that is okay. Pac and the Lucha Brothers will do some fun things together. That is It's an odd pairing, but I don't think it's one that doesn't make any sense. They have had some interactions before, and I'm at least interested to see where that one goes. Jake Hager, who made his debut at Revolution, defeating Dustin Rhodes, had another victory on Dynamite, making pretty quick work of QT Marshall, choking him out with that standing triangle choke that is clearly now going to be his finisher. He would use that later on, too, against Moxley when they all jumped him in the main event. After the match, they had the Rhodes brothers, Cody and Dustin, I think, came out there, and the Inner Circle to all start brawling with each other. Matt Jackson came out as well to make the save. Now, Nick Jackson and Kenny Omega were not on TV. There was a reason for it, and I think the television reason was they weren't cleared, but they were off doing something else. So they weren't even on Dynamite. It was Matt by himself. He came out there, and then Hangman showed up really late again, kind of drunk, nailed, I believe, Hager with the buckshot lariat, and then flipped off Matt Jackson and left. So Hangman just continues to be really an interesting character. I didn't think much of him at first, and I even thought he was kind of an odd choice to be the guy to challenge Jericho, because I thought he should get a little bit more over it first, like he is now. And ever since they started that drinking stuff with him, I'm like, well, eventually he's going to break away from the Elite. He's going to turn heel. But I like that they're dragging their feet a little bit with this here, because it keeps you guessing. You don't really know what the internal beef really is between them. It started, I think, on the YouTube show, just little tiny teases between him and Omega like months ago, and it's slowly developed and evolved into what we see now, and eventually it's all going to come to a head. And we saw the big tag match at Revolution with Omega and Hangman retaining the titles. I'm guessing we're going to get a Hangman. I'd love to see that. Paige and Matt Jackson one-on-one. Is that what we're getting next week on Dynamite? They might have even announced that. Feels like that's on the horizon. That should be a lot of fun. And whatever the end game is here, whenever this thing finally explodes, I think can be good shit. And that's finally made me care about Hangman's character. And he's one of the more interesting people on Dynamite. And that's a complete 180 from where he was in my mind, like when AEW or when Dynamite started in October and November. I've always been a fan of Paige, but more of just, his strength. I thought he was a really strong dude who's good in the ring, and that's really it. Never really given a shit much about his character until now. So excellent work by the Hangman. Can't wait to see how this thing all plays out in the end. And we already talked about the main event, and that's pretty much the meat of Dynamite right there. Nothing too crazy going on. But when I look at both shows back to back, like I said, NXT was great because I thought the 2 cage matches were great, but there was a couple of matches in there that I didn't care too much about, even though the tag between Undisputed Era and Oney Lorcan and Danny Burch was great, and Austin Theory is getting a big push. Chelsea and Shotzi was like, or whatever. There was just more big moments, I feel like, on AEW. Plus, I was more interested in that show because it was right off the heels of the pay-per-view. So I'm giving the nod. I believe now, I think this is, I don't keep track of this. I only have to do it by memory. I want to say this is the 4th week in a row I've picked AEW as the better show. I think I went on a run there where I had about 4 in a row for NXT that I just considered to be better, but AEW has just been vastly better in my opinion. It just has been. Let me shut my cat up. Get out of here. So, yeah, AEW, and that's the thing, like, they deserve some credit for that, because one thing, like I've said right from the beginning, that we can always count on NXT for is just giving us a good show. NXT's never given me a bad Wednesday, ever. And this past Wednesday was no different, but AEW is just really a fun pro wrestling show to watch. With, it takes on like different identities throughout the show, where NXT feels like it stays mostly the same. And I feel like AEW right now is the better overall, well-rounded professional wrestling show on TV. And when you look at all the professional wrestling shows on TV, Raw, NXT, SmackDown, and AEW, right now, I mean, your opinion can change from one month to the next, but right now, currently in 2020, I think AEW Dynamite is the best TV wrestling show currently on. You guys agree with me or no? Yay or nay? I say yay. Anyway, SmackDown took place last night. I am not going to mention much about the show because it's the go-home show tomorrow night's Elimination Chamber, and there's really no reason to go through a match-by-match review of this thing. But we do have to talk about a couple of things. Before I do, let me just peek back over here to the chat and make sure there's nothing I missed in the super chat department. Really nice audience in here, about 400 people. That is fantastic. Will you guys do me a big favor and smash the thumbs up button? I really appreciate it. I'm up here every Saturday afternoon at 3 p.m. Pacific for a Winged Eagle podcast where we talk about the week in professional wrestling, TV and news and all that stuff. Thank you guys for hanging out today. And if anybody's new, Please subscribe. All right, we are caught up with the super chats and all that bullshit. Let's move on to last night's SmackDown, and then we will predict an Elimination Chamber, and then I will get out of your face because you're going to get me for the next 2 nights here on the channel as well. SmackDown opened up last night with the NWO. They were on the Moment of Bliss talk show, and Nikki Cross was with her. She wasn't advertised at first, and then she was out there with him. NWO comes out. Now it's just Hall, Nash, and X-Pac. It's not Hogan. It's just the 3 of them. They come out to the ring. This is pretty funny. They sit down there with Alexa and Nikki, and Alexa asks a couple of questions, one of them being to Sean Waltman. And she goes, Sean, what exactly do we call you? She goes, do we call you 123 Kid? Do we call you X-Pac? And then Nikki Cross goes, do we call you Socks? I was like, Socks? S-A-X? I think she means 6. That was kind of hilarious. And he's like, oh man, you can just call me Hall of Famer or whatever. And then she asks Kevin Nash about him, I believe, ending the streak against Goldberg back at Starrcade in 1998. And he says that, he talked to Roman Reigns, and Roman asked him, what do you need to do to beat Goldberg? And he goes, all you need is a cattle prod and Scott Hall. So that was really funny because that was a very controversial topic back in the day. That was 21 years ago now that happened. And damn, I can't believe these guys are still on TV. That's just crazy to think about. Starrcade 98, Nash versus Goldberg. Scott Hall interferes, shocks Goldberg with the cattle prod. Nash ends the streak. Here we are 21 years later, and you've got the NWO on TV on the same show that Goldberg is the champion of. That is crazy. That is crazy. I cannot believe Goldberg is champion again. That still blows my mind. Anyway, Nash kind of even buried Goldberg a little bit, said he didn't even remember beating the streak, which was kind of funny. They're then interrupted after they do a few things. Scott Hall too I got to mention him. I didn't write down anything specific that he had or that he said, but he was funny. He was laughing. He was having me laugh my ass off because he had a lot of like snide little under his breath comments on the mic that just had me chuckling. And we all know that Goldberg and Hall have never gotten along. That goes all the way back to WCW days because Scott Hall was an asshole back in the day. So I can understand there's been a lot of heat between those two guys. They seem like they'd be natural enemies. But anyway, Sami Zayn and company come out. He's backed up by Cesaro and Shinsuke Nakamura. They get in the ring. They insult X-Pac. He gets up. X-Pac looks like he's ready to fight. So's Nash. Scott Hall, I don't think really can. Nash and Pac are like, yeah, we'll kick your asses. And then Scott Hall goes, yeah, what they said. And he stays sitting down in the chair. Nash says that Sami Zayn looks like Seth Rogen after a stomach flu. I thought that was kind of funny. The NWO is basically ready to get their fight on, but Sami Zayn and Cesaro and Shinsuke, they back down, they stand down, they start to leave, and that's when Braun Strowman's music hits. Intercontinental Champion storms down to the ramp, beats the shit out of Cesaro and Shinsuke, leaving Sami in the ring by himself. And then Strowman celebrates and does the big click hand symbol with the NWO, and that was the extent of the segment there. So I thought it was fun. Just a harmless segment with the NWO just during WrestleMania time. And Strowman's got the big match, with all those guys at Elimination Chamber, which I'll predict in a minute. But I did find it interesting that they did kind of touch on the Nash and Goldberg thing, and that goes back to my argument and the conversation I was having with Alex the other day on social media. I'm like, this doesn't apply. This stop relying on the past type of stuff doesn't apply for this segment. It's WrestleMania time. These guys are going to the Hall of Fame. Putting them out on for 10 minutes on TV is not the end of the world, especially when there's 5, 6 other pieces of current talent with them, none of which were buried by them. Alexa and Nikki were out there, followed by Sami and Shinsuke and Cesaro, and then Braun Strowman. And plus, there was a reason for them to be there, for Alexa to ask Kevin Nash about Goldberg and beating him in 98, and what does Roman have to do and all that stuff. I thought it tied in together fine, and this was not a big deal. Didn't mind the NWO being on the show at all. We also got to mention the Firefly Funhouse segment. This was great. I would love this segment, but I'm still got a bad taste in my mouth. I'm never going to get fucking over what they did at Super Showdown with these guys, and I feel like I'm not the type of fan to step over the line and just insist that Bray Wyatt is ruined and all that shit. I understand that he never really needed to be champion, and I understand that maybe figuring out a way to take the belt off of him so you can continue doing other cool shit with him is also not really that bad, but WWE started this fuck up. Bray Wyatt was buried at Hell in a Cell. He was buried at Hell in a Cell. Once they did that and they felt the need to fix it at Super Showdown, that was the end for him. Because maybe they should have just never put the belt on him to begin with. Don't know why he got the title shot. I even predicted him to not win the title, and he did, and that surprised me. But then once he was champion, I'm like, well, you got to keep it on him now. And if you are going to beat him, you better come up with some crazy way to get that belt off of him. You know, you need to bury him under, you know, you need to implode the building, and the building needs to collapse on top of him, and then you pin him on top of all the rubble. That's the only way to keep him down. The last way to do it, the last way you need to do it is have a guy in his 50s hit him with 3 spears and a somersault jackhammer and pin him. Unbelievable. And it's going to be hard for me to ever look at Bray Wyatt the same way again. But there's intrigue with his match with John Cena. I like this match. I'm not against the match. What I'm against is how he lost the title, and now he doesn't seem to give a shit that he lost the title. But now he's moving on to Cena, which would have been fine all along, especially if Bray Wyatt is going to wind up beating him. Just keep the fucking belt on him, you know, and then he can beat Cena. That's all you fucking need to do. Anyway, the Funhouse segment is Bray Wyatt talking about John Cena, and he's got his pictures up on the wall, and Ramblin' Rabbit is out there mentioning how John Cena buried him and destroyed him back at WrestleMania 30 and caused Bray Wyatt to fall into that downward spiral and turn into the man he is today. John Cena and Bray Wyatt went on to say that too, that a lot of the reasons why you see the Fiend in the Funhouse now is because of John Cena and their past history. So the fact that they're tying all that in, even including footage of WrestleMania 33 where John Cena beat him, I love all of that. I just wish that could still be done without me being so soured on the Fiend character after Super Showdown. You know, I'm sure we can all get back into it, but it's just really hard for me to accept what they did to him, you know? I mean, even if you had to have him lose, it's not the very act of taking the belt off of him that bothered me. It's how they did it is what really bothered me. If you absolutely must rip the belt off of him, do it. He shouldn't have been champion to begin with. Just do it smart. And I don't feel like they did it smart. So now he's got this match with John Cena. What's going to happen now? He's going to go into WrestleMania and lose to him? Yikes. I hope not. I hope Bray Wyatt exercises this demon, puts John Cena down, and, you know, that's the end of that. So pretty good segment there. Bray Wyatt got a little bit more serious in the Funhouse because he's normally a combination of like funny and then scary. You know, here he was more like cutting a promo, like very upset, you know, about what happened to him, you know, all those years ago and shit. And he looks like he's out for revenge. So that's good. I'm looking forward to the match. But like I said, my heart's not in it because of Super Showdown. Way to go, WWE. We got to talk about Otis and Mandy as well. Now, this whole thing has still been going on. WWE has been doing a fantastic job of building sympathy for poor Otis. There ain't a human being on social media or in wrestling, a wrestling fan out there that is happy about what's happening to him. Everybody, there's no heartless wrestling fan out like that. Nobody's like laughing at Otis. Everybody, I've never seen support this much across the board for one guy before. Everybody wants to see Otis have a happy ending here. Even the most cynical, most assholish wrestling fans that we see want the best for Otis. So he approaches Mandy backstage. He's still trying to apologize for Valentine's Day. And he's like, look, somebody texted me and said you were going to be late and blah, blah, blah. And she's like, Otis, I'm sorry. It's just too late. Like, basically, you had your chance. You had your window. Sorry. And she walks away, and Otis is just quivering. And so that's kind of like one side of the story here. You still have to wonder who the hell sent Otis the text message. We thought it was Dolph Ziggler, but maybe it's come out now that it wasn't Ziggler. So my other theory is it's got to be Sonya Deville, because Sonya has shown instances of annoyance with Mandy Rose and the whole Otis thing, and they kind of get focused and shit like that. Similar focus to what Tucker shows with Otis. So what I think could be a good idea here, and man, this is like looking way, we still got this gauntlet match to talk about. Okay, let's talk about that first before we talk about Mania, because I got like 5 different ideas here. So after Mandy shoots down Otis's apology, they then have to go into a tag team gauntlet match last night where the winner of the match gets to enter the Elimination Chamber last tomorrow. So they start out the match, and get this, they put down the New Day first. They beat the New Day, then they score a quick pin then they beat the Lucha House Party after the New Day. Then they score a quick pin on the Usos, upsetting them. Jesus, my cat. Fuck. Are you going to shut up so I can talk about SmackDown? I got a meowing cat in here. Anyway, so they, like I said, they start off the match. They put the New Day down. Then they beat the Lucha House Party. Then they defeat the Usos. And then the champions come out there. Miz and Morrison, who just won the titles and lost last week on SmackDown. And Heavy Machinery beats them too. So they beat all 4 teams. This was a star-making match for Otis. putting down not only the two best teams in WWE, New Day and the Usos, but the tag team champions. Quite the role those tag team champions are on since winning them titles, losing 2 SmackDowns in a row. But that's okay. It all had to play into, Heavy Machinery getting all these victories, leaving Dolph Ziggler and Bobby Roode as the final team to come in. And what happens? Otis eats a super kick from Dolph, no less, and gets pinned. And Bobby Roode and Dolph Ziggler will be the final team to enter the Elimination Chamber tomorrow night. And that's perfect. So what's going to happen there? This is a tag team title match. I'm going to predict here in a minute that you would think Miz and Morrison have got to retain here, right? They've been shit on ever since they won the titles. They've lost every match they've had. Now they're going to lose their titles. They're going to go winless and drop the belts right after winning them. What was the point of even winning them to begin with? If they were going to do that. So that either means one thing. They're transitional champions to put the belts on maybe a babyface team like Heavy Machinery. Maybe after Heavy Machinery gets screwed last night, they go on to win the titles here in the chamber. But I almost think the more likely scenario is Miz and Morrison. But this also has to tie into WrestleMania. And that's why I have an idea about WrestleMania. Oh, my God. Get out of here. Leave me alone. So I got all sorts of ideas for WrestleMania and what they could do with Otis and Mandy there. And I think whatever they do needs to culminate there. So what do? Do you put the tag team titles on Heavy Machinery tomorrow and then have like a tag title match between Heavy Machinery and Ziggler and Roode at WrestleMania, with maybe Mandy being involved there on the outside of the ring, maybe as a special guest referee? Or do you go in the singles direction and have Otis versus Ziggler at WrestleMania? Would you really do that? And maybe have Mandy involved that way? Whatever the case here is, I want to see a happy ending for Otis. I put this on Twitter earlier today. I want to see Otis and Mandy have a Macho Man and Miss Elizabeth WrestleMania 7 moment, not a Macho Man and Sensational Sherry WrestleMania 7 moment, because he had interactions with both ladies that night. One kicked his ass and one married him. So I want to see it be happy. I don't want to see it's like when Tori was with Kane back in the day. You knew she was going to turn on him. Every time a woman shows interest in somebody that's beneath her in wrestling, she always turns out to be a heel. And just this once, I would like to see it be a happy ending where the misunderstanding is all forgiven and everybody understands each other, and Otis and Mandy share a big hug and a big kiss at WrestleMania in front of 80,000 people. The fans are on their feet crying their eyes out, just like at WrestleMania 7. How great of a moment would that be? Or, do you do all these other twists and turns with it? Now, I mentioned earlier on, that it could be Sonya Deville that was the one that sent the text out. You know who else it could be? What if it's Tucker? Because Tucker has been showing a lot of support for Otis on TV. He's almost been going over the top with it, really defending his friend, my brother. He's so pissed at Mandy, what she did to him, and he hasn't been himself. What if it's all a ploy? What if he doesn't like Otis's infatuation with Mandy because either, number one, it's fucking up the team, or maybe he's got his own feelings for Mandy or something. But what if it's the ultimate betrayal? And it's something the fans didn't see happening either. And it turned out to be Tucker that's the one that's been trying to sabotage Otis's relationship with Mandy. And then he attacks Otis, beats him down on TV or something. And I don't know. And then that leads to a WrestleMania match between the two of them. I think it would be better if it was Ziggler. So my idea of it being Tucker is probably unlikely. But I still think Sonya Deville could be involved here. And maybe Dolph Ziggler too, and it leads to something, whatever it leads to at WrestleMania. I want to see Otis and Mandy come together for a warm, passionate embrace. That's all I want. That's all I want for those two. I want those two kids to be happy and run away together and get married. And think about that TV wedding. When it comes to wrestling weddings, they all suck. I don't think Otis and Mandy would suck. I think Otis and Mandy getting married on SmackDown would be fun as shit. And that could all lead to it too. If they do wind up doing the big Mandy heel turn, maybe it could be a double swerve. Maybe she gets with him at first, and then they do the wedding, and then she turns on him, and maybe she turns on him with Tucker. Oh my God. There you go. You do the match at WrestleMania. Mandy and Otis come together. They hug. They're in love. They announce their wedding date, and Tucker is his best man. And then they get to the wedding, and Mandy says, "No, I've been cheating on you with your best friend." Oh my God. Tucker beats down Otis, and him and Mandy make out right over Otis's body. Holy shit. You could do so much fun things with this angle. I hope that they do. But knowing WWE and their uncanny ability to fuck every single thing up that they touch, this I'm sure will be no different. So anyway, that all should be interesting. Let's move on to the Chamber and predict that. Guess I'll start at the bottom of the card here and move our way up. Yeah, this is kind of there's a couple of matches on here that I think are interesting, but for the most part, this is a really throwaway pay-per-view. Does anybody give a shit about this show tomorrow? I hope you guys join me tomorrow night for my Elimination Chamber review. We'll try to make the best of it here. And one thing I will say about WWE in the past, and we've seen this when we've had kind of like lackluster shows or shows on paper that are like underwhelming, the talent a lot of times comes through and delivers good matches. And when you look at a lot of these matches on paper, 4 of these are guaranteed to be good, I would think, out of the 7, I think, total I have. And they could add something here. This is according to WWE.com. Right before I went live, I pulled these off and dumped them in my document here. So if they add a match on the kickoff or something, they might do that. But I only have 7 matches written down. Here's what I've got. We've got Intercontinental Champion Braun Strowman taking on Shinsuke Nakamura, Sami Zayn, and Cesaro in a 3-on-1 handicap match. Braun Strowman, they're not going to take the title off of him now. He just won it. So I think he's going to find a way to beat all 3 of those guys and retain the title and go into WrestleMania to defend it against somebody. And right now, I'm thinking the likely contender for his title at WrestleMania is probably Sheamus. We were all kind of thinking that maybe Sheamus and Daniel Bryan could rekindle their rivalry from 2012 and maybe have a rematch, and Daniel Bryan can kind of get that win back from the 18-second debacle or whatever. But now it looks like Daniel Bryan has got a different direction for WrestleMania, and Sheamus, could be a good candidate to win the Intercontinental title because it's the one belt he's never held. And again, is that something you'd want to see, Strowman going down? I mean, Sheamus, it wouldn't be like unbelievable for him to beat Strowman. Sheamus has held every title. He's won a lot more gold than Strowman, and he's put a lot of major names down, including John Cena and others. So Sheamus beating Strowman clean, it's plausible, and we might likely see it at WrestleMania for the Intercontinental title. But as far as tomorrow, I think Braun Strowman will retain. I mentioned the Aleister Black and AJ Styles match earlier on. This is actually being billed as a no disqualification match, which gives me all the more reason to really confirm that Aleister Black is going to win this. I don't have any doubt about this at all, that he's going to come out on top here, especially after what happened to him on Monday night. And considering it's a no disqualification match, something can happen. OC is going to get involved. You can have weapons. I think we are going to see either an appearance by The Undertaker or an appearance by The Undertaker's theme song. One or the other. It's going to distract AJ, and Aleister is going to hit him with a black mass, and AJ is going to sell that shit inside out and get pinned, and Aleister Black will be your winner there. I'm also going to predict the Street Profits to retain over Seth Rollins and Buddy Murphy. I think this is just the rematch that you have to have to have. The match will be good. The matches so far between these teams have been good. The match a couple of weeks ago on Raw between Montez and Seth was phenomenal. So I think the Street Profits retain here, and Seth moves on to face Kevin Owens at WrestleMania. And I'm sure Kevin Owens might even show his face in this match as well. Wouldn't be surprised at all. We have the United States title on the line again. How many goddamn title shots does Humberto Carrillo need to get? And he's taking on Andrade here. Now, what I'm concerned about this match is that we've all had in our heads, we could be wrong, but I think we're all smelling a 4-way, right? Humberto Carrillo, Angel Garza, Rey Mysterio, and Champion Andrade at WrestleMania. So what do? Does Andrade hold the title until WrestleMania and drop it at WrestleMania in the 4-way to one of these guys? Or do you switch the title here? And do you switch it again at WrestleMania? What if Humberto wins this? Because here's my problem here. Humberto Carrillo's gotten 1 million title shots already. So if he comes up short here in his match with Andrade, the Fatal 4-Way doesn't make sense anymore, because why would Humberto Carrillo get another U.S. title shot if he loses it here? So what I think is going to happen is Angel Garza is going to show up or something and interfere in the match or do something to cost Humberto Carrillo the match, and Andrade will retain. Because otherwise, if Andrade just straight up beats him, I don't think Humberto Carrillo deserves to be in that Fatal 4-Way match at WrestleMania, but I also don't see them hot potatoing the title either. I mean, maybe not hot potato, maybe transitional champion is a better way to word that. But I would not put the belt on Humberto Carrillo to have him drop it in a month. I would just keep it on Andrade and do it that way. And I think maybe you get some interference from Angel Garza or Zelina Vega or something to fuck over Humberto that will give him a reason to get yet another title shot at WrestleMania. That's all assuming they do that 4-way. If they don't, then I guess either way, I'm picking Andrade to win here, which is interesting because I don't think I've got any title changes at all on the show. Yeah, we might not get any title changes. So I could be wrong on that one. If I'm wrong on any match, it might be that one, but I'm still going to predict Andrade to retain there. We've got Daniel Bryan taking on Drew Gulak. This is interesting because these guys, their issue kind of bubbled up. It seemed like out of nowhere a couple of weeks ago on SmackDown. And I'm like, that's interesting. That's such a Daniel Bryan opponent to have too. Daniel Bryan at this stage of his career and his comeback and everything, I'm so glad that he's choosing, if he's choosing, I don't know, maybe WWE's choosing it, but for him to work with guys like this. And since they're even going through the trouble of putting Daniel Bryan in this little program with Drew Gulak, I hope it's not just 3 weeks of shit on TV, a couple of PowerPoint presentations, then you have a match, Daniel Bryan hits the running knees, and it's over. And that's the end of that. I'd like to see it go in the other direction here, and I could be way wrong on this. I probably am, but I want to see Drew Gulak pick up the victory here. I'm going to predict him to defeat Daniel Bryan only because Drew Gulak is awesome, and if Daniel Bryan is going to do some sort of a mid-card type of torch passing, Gulak, similar style, similar size. These guys respect each other. Daniel Bryan's probably thrilled. They're probably thrilled to be working with each other. So I think the best option here as far as longevity in the program is to put Drew Gulak over here and have Daniel Bryan face him again at WrestleMania and maybe get the victory there or something. Maybe continue this issue, because if Daniel Bryan is not going to be working with Sheamus or maybe challenging for the Intercontinental title or anything like that, and he's not challenging for the world title, which we know, what does he do at WrestleMania? He's got to do something. Don't put him in some meaningless match. Don't stick him in a tag. Don't stick him in the Battle Royal, God forbid, on the pre-show. Put him in something meaningful, and having a match with Gulak and a little program with him, I think can be fun. So I'm going to predict Drew Gulak, to pick up the upset win against Daniel Bryan tomorrow. Let's talk about the Women's Elimination Chamber first, because this is the predictable one. Now, I laid out that whole scenario earlier on in the podcast. I'm begging you guys who have just recently tuned in to rewind a little bit and listen to my entire Nia Jax idea. Who was it? Austin that sent in a super chat mentioning the rumor of possibly Nia Jax returning in the Elimination Chamber. And I thought that would be a really interesting match if she did and won it and win to face Becky Lynch at WrestleMania. WWE could essentially do the same thing with Becky that they're doing with Roman, putting Becky in a match where they feel like she's got a better chance of being cheered. Where if she's in there with Shayna, she might get booed. Plus, there were reports of Vince not being too terribly happy with Shayna's performance on Raw and all that shit, and you never know what's going on in that crazy old kook's mind. So if he does change his mind on something, moving in and inserting Nia Jax into this match might be something they could do, but assuming she's not going to be a part of this at all, I'm predicting, obviously, Shayna Baszler to win this. When you look at the field there, Natty, Liv, Ruby, Sarah, Asuka, I'd love for it to be Asuka, but I don't think it's going to be. She already got a couple of title shots, and who knows, Asuka might not even be cleared to wrestle. I hope that she is. If she's not, I'm sure they'll stick Kairi Sane in her place, but I really want Asuka to be in this match, because like I said, if Nia's not showing up and it's just going to be this match like I'm expecting it to be, you have to have your final two be Asuka and Shayna Baszler. I cannot stress that enough. Asuka's going to have to go down because they're going to have to really help build Shayna's momentum, but just being able to see that, the two most dominant NXT women's champions ever, to me, that's a WrestleMania match, Asuka and Shayna. And it's a shame that Asuka is not really to that level that she was when she first left NXT, but still, it's going to be cool to see them clash in the ring at the Chamber, and I hope they're the final two, and I expect them to be. And all that's assuming, of course, that Asuka is cleared. If she's not, insert Nia Jax or insert Kairi Sane. We'll see tomorrow. And then finally, and I have no clue, by the way, what the main event here is going to be. I'm assuming it's going to be the women's match, but it could be the Tag Team Chamber. And this is going to be the Tag Team Elimination Chamber Tag Team title match for the SmackDown titles. Usos, A New Day, Heavy Machinery, Lucha House Party, I almost said Lucha Brothers, Lucha House Party, and Rude and Ziggler, and champions Miz and Morrison, of course. They're defending against all those teams. So, like I said earlier, this is all going to tie in maybe somehow with the Otis and Mandy thing going into WrestleMania. And a lot of people would say, well, maybe that issue doesn't need the title, but I kind of argued maybe that it does. I think your top storyline should have the title in a lot of ways, sometimes. And with with tag teams being involved here, I think putting the title in the mix here isn't adding too much to it. These guys are tag teams. So if you had somebody like Heavy Machinery pull off the big upset here, or maybe not the upset, but pull off the victory, making them champions, and then they have a match at WrestleMania with Rude and Ziggler with Mandy involved, you could go that way. Or you could have Rude and Ziggler win, but I don't think so. But I think the likely scenario here is, got jumping cats, is Miz and Morrison retaining. Because like I said, they won the title at Super Showdown, and they've lost every match they've been in. They lost 2 weeks ago. They lost last night. So they should win here. If they lose again, what was the point of even putting the belts on them at all? Talk about being a transitional champion. You win the belts, lose every match you have, and then pass them off to somebody else. Jesus, that seems awfully backwards and not the way I would do it. So I'm going to predict Miz and Morrison to retain. What I think happens is this match opens the show. I think the tag team chamber match will open the show, and Miz and Morrison will somehow retain the title. But like I said, this is all going to lead to some sort of a big end game at WrestleMania with Otis and Mandy and Ziggler and Tucker and whoever else, and they could go in a lot of different directions there. So that should be fun. I think that concludes my notes. Holy shit, look at me with 600 people almost in the chat. That is fantastic. Thank you guys for hanging out today. I could still use the likes. Hook me up with some likes there so I don't look like a jabroni. I would appreciate it. And now I will hang out in the chat a little bit and answer a few questions before we get out of here. It looks like it's going to be a stream that's going to end right at about 2 hours. So it was a good podcast today. And like I said, I'm going to be up here tomorrow night after the Elimination Chamber. I will post the link to that video here tonight, so keep a lookout. And I'll be up on Monday too, reacting to Raw. Vontae, why couldn't they just do Shayna versus Abuja? I think you mean Asuka for the number one contender spot. I don't think they really need an EC match. I agree completely, but the problem is you have an Elimination pay-per-view, Elimination Chamber pay-per-view, and I've always been against these. I don't like the Elimination Chamber pay-per-view. I don't like the Hell in the Cell pay-per-view. I don't like the TLC pay-per-view. The only one I'm willing to accept is the Money in the Bank, because I think that offers interesting scenarios and shit, but I think the Elimination Chamber match is so dumb. It looks like a toy. I don't like the overhead spot with the little spotlights. It looks like a goddamn game show. It's too overproduced. It doesn't look gritty or dirty or unforgiving or any of these other words that WWE uses in their narrative to describe this demonic structure. It doesn't look like that at all. It looks like a goddamn Mattel toy set, that you would give a 10-year-old. And even the Hell in the Cell is that way now. They painted the damn thing red. So, it's not, I think about the old day, the old 70s and 80s cage matches, how they just really felt like, personal issues are going to be solved and they were very dangerous matches to be in. These matches just don't give you that feel. Even the initial structure of the Elimination Chamber was a little bit more gnarly because it had there was no padding and it just had steel on the outside and you were just taking flat back bumps on that stuff. But even that was unnecessary. Now they've padded the whole thing up and made it look like a toy, and it's silly. And you're right. You're right, Vontae. They don't need this match at all. You could have just done, think if you built that on Raw, that could have been your main event. You could have started building that 3 weeks ago. And maybe not 3. You can't advertise that a whole month in advance, but maybe like 2 weeks or maybe even 3 weeks if you really want to push it in advance. You build for Shayna versus Asuka on March 9th, which is this Monday. You should have been building this for the past 3 weeks. And this week on Monday Night Raw, in the main event, very last thing on the show, you get Asuka, Shayna Baszler, dream match, clash, head-to-head. Give these girls 20 minutes to work and have them have a good match and have Shayna, in the end, choke out a very game Asuka who takes Shayna to the fucking limit. But in the end, Shayna chokes her out. She gets the match against Becky Lynch. I would have way preferred that over the Elimination Chamber. You're 100% right, Vontae, on that one. So that's the way I'd prefer things to be done, but the way everything is structured now and these silly pay-per-views just being stuck right in the middle of your calendar, and you're plugging away, you're running towards these pay-per-views, but you don't see them coming. They just, appear out of nowhere, and then you've got to scramble and put all these storylines together, especially around Hell in the Cell time. Hell in the Cell should be used for a blow-off. Elimination Chamber, maybe not so much because there's so many guys in there. That's a good match to actually determine championships or contenders, but still, I don't like the match at all. At least with the Hell in the Cell, those should be reserved for deeply personal issues where these two guys literally want to murder each other, and the only other option you have left for these guys is to stick them in a box and say, fight it out. But now you've got Hell in the Cell already on your calendar in October, and you just have to hope that you've got a storyline that's got enough heat that would warrant a match like that. And that's why you just have these you have people just put in Hell in the Cell matches now that have no issue with each other. That's my biggest problem with all of this and these stupid themed pay-per-views. At least Money in the Bank, it doesn't matter. You just put a bunch of guys in there, winner gets a title shot. But these TLC matches, these like really brutal matches, I feel like they're doing their talent a disservice by putting them in career-shortening matches for no reason. At least with Mick Foley, in Hell in the Cell, or Shawn Michaels in Hell in the Cell, or some of these other crazy matches, at least if they're going to shave years off of their career, they're going to be remembered for it. You know what I mean? Now you're just throwing these matches together where nobody remembers shit. I couldn't tell you what happened in the last 6 Hell in the Cell pay-per-views. No clue. But I'll never forget 97. Then I'll never forget 98 and some of those other years, and that's just what's different now. These poor wrestlers go out there and kill themselves and literally snap their spinal cords in half for no reason. Sad state of affairs, as Kramer would say. Sonny Man, how are you doing, dude? Good to see you. Good to see you in here, chat site. Chat site forums, I beg you to rewind. I talked about that entire scenario. I talked about Sonya Deville. I talked about Tucker being the one behind the text message because he's been really outwardly showing support for Otis, maybe even too much, maybe being a little bit too supportive of his brother and taking very big exception to everything that Mandy's been doing to him. And in the end, it could be a nice swerve to have him be the cause of this. I even mentioned the crazy scenario of having him and Mandy be in on it. Maybe Otis and Mandy are doing the big wrestling wedding. Tucker is the best man. Mandy says, no, Otis, I will not marry you. I've been cheating on you with Tucker. And then they beat the shit out of Otis and make out over Otis's body. Something like that could happen. But whatever happens at WrestleMania, I want to see Otis and Mandy come together like Macho Man Randy Savage and Miss Elizabeth did at WrestleMania 7. I think that would bring a tear to our eyes. And it's something we need. We need some happiness. We need some positivity in wrestling. It wouldn't kill us. Wouldn't kill us to be positive, would it? Is it really the worst thing in the world to be all positive and shit? Well, anyway, as much as it pains me to strand 600 people in the chat, I think I'm going to get out of here. I will be back up here tomorrow night, immediately following Elimination Chamber, so make sure you join me for that. We'll talk all about the pay-per-view and what happened, and we will officially be on the road to WrestleMania by that point. And then the very next night, we're going to sit here and watch Raw together, and that's going to be the return of Edge and potentially a whole bunch of good stuff on Raw this Monday. So you guys have a great rest of your Saturday evening. I appreciate you hanging out with me. Enjoy the pay-per-view tomorrow. Make sure you follow me on Twitter and follow along with me, as I live tweet throughout the Elimination Chamber, and then we'll be up here to discuss it when the show is over. I will talk to you guys tomorrow. Y'all be cool. Peace.